Okay, today is March 14th, 2025. It is 9 o'clock. This is the Governing Board workshop. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We have a quorum. We do have one director missing due to a family emergency, so his absence is excused. If you're able to stand, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I've already established the quorum. I will read the meeting procedures document. The Governing Board and its committees conduct all of their meetings in compliance with Arizona Planned Community Association open meeting laws per ARS 33-1804 and in concert with RCSCW bylaws, policies, and standing rules. Parliamentary procedures, as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order, will also be followed in all meetings as appropriate, consistent with Bylaw 3.07, entitled Procedures for Owner-Member Meetings, and Standing Rules number 2 and number 3. Then with that, we'll go to our first order of business is to approve our meeting minutes from February 14th, 2025. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions? Okay, seeing none, the minutes will be accepted as written. With that, we'll go to our new business, which is the update for the club space expansion request. Carl Wilhelm will read the statement that Director Chatton would have read if he were here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, President Leary. Over the last few months of our proposed capital project list, one of the items that being proposed was Clay Club and glass enameling, asking for space expansion of their club rooms. This idea had potential impact to a club such as photography that has a space in between. In the beginning months, it didn't appear that we could find common ground on finding an answer to this, so the general manager and Director Chatton formed a group to have meetings to expand on this discussion, to get community and club input, staff input, and these are the notes from those meetings. The participants involved from staff, the general manager, capital projects manager, facilities maintenance manager Russ Boston, IT director Kyle Hockman, and recreation manager Casey Huta. From the Charter Clubs Committee, John Chatton and David Bennett. Properties Committee, Kay Williams and John Hobold. Budget and Finance Committee, Christine Novello and Chris Waller. Clay Club was represented by Lynn Kellis. Glass Fusing and Enameling, Cheryl Schmidt. Photography West, Gary Sweeney. Computers West, Norm Falcone. Clay Club and glass fusing and enameling had a majority consensus from the group tasked with this study that both clubs need an expansion. This is something that will not happen immediately, but in the future, possibly with the $30K proposed capital line item kept aside for the FY2025-26 budget year for architectural needs amongst the Clay Club, Glass Fusing, Enameling, and Photography West. Photography Club is located between the Clay Club and Glass Fusing and Enameling and at the Beardsley Rec Center. Because of this club sits between the two clubs requesting expansion, it was another majority consensus that the club should be moved but not disbanded. Staff has been asked to find a new location for Photography West in some capacity, whether it is a rentable space or something else that could fit their needs on our property or in a new location. Again, this is not immediate action, but will be reviewed in the near future. Clay Club has the highest participation numbers with restrictive space currently around center areas such as glazing, drying, and wheels in the classroom. In the meantime, Casey Huta, Russ Boston, Sabrina Olivato and Carl Wilhelm will work on with the club to come up with accommodations till we can further discuss a plan with photography. Glass fusing and enameling has a very restrictive space and utilizes 2 rooms at Beardsley, which is felt is slightly unsafe space when needing to move glass from one room to another. They have requested a look at compliance for the safety of their members as well. Russ Boston is currently working on this to make sure that all safety needs are met to standards, and if not, we'll have a follow-up with the club and work on those needs. Computers West was involved because we thought in the beginning that the photography and the computers club could have a shared space. As a majority consensus of the group, it was decided that Computers West will not be included in this particular study moving forward. And that is the report from Director Chatton.
Thank you, Carl. Any questions from the board? Yes, Director Rhodes.
I don't have a question, but I do want to make a comment about this. When we first heard this issue of the club expansion, the governing board was not very happy that, it was just an arbitrary decision to say no. What we are doing here is the exact thing that we should be doing, and that's collaborating with the clubs, engaging our staff with people that are as insightful as Carl and their staff there. So I know that don't have a recommendation here, but what we have is positive evidence there. We're moving on this. We're going to have a thoughtful recommendation. It may not be, Lynn Kellis may not be happy, but she's not going to be able to sit out there and tell me that you made an arbitrary decision. So to that degree, I think that I congratulate you and all of the people that are involved in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Yes, Dennis.
Yes, the last time we did talk about this, we also talked about investigating increased hours at the club and scheduling. Where does that fit into this? Is it still in play? What's going on?
Carl, can you respond? Thank you.
During these opportunities of the 2 major meetings that we had on this subject matter after initial presentation to the committees, all of that information was very clearly discussed. The clubs got to share their point of view of either potential opportunities to expand their use and hours, and the overlapping theme for the 2 clubs asking for more space is if you were to take the time frame to do the craft, put things in kilns, and the hours that the kiln time uses arbitrary from how much participation is in the room, none of the time frames work out, hence needing the potential of some more kilns during those odd hours that maybe kilns are doing their business and people are doing their creative work. So we did not find any specific great opportunity that, except for maybe supporting that more people come on weekends and Sundays, ideas like that. But as far as operational hours go, how many members participate, that was thoroughly vetted.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. I'm glad that was investigated totally also, and thank you everybody that participated in that too. Sounds like we're covering all the bases. That's all we can do.
And I'll follow that up with just saying too that the importance of having our other directors from other committees there. They heard the same information. I feel that consensus was made. Not all points were necessarily 100% agreed on, but okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Questions, comments from the audience? Oh, did you have one? Oh, sorry.
So you mentioned Sundays. Are we going to allow those clubs to open on Sundays then, just to see how that helps the members in the club?
We currently don't restrict it, but the ask has not been officially been made for us to change operational staffing hours or making sure that we're, have the ability to staff for weekends. So if that's the place that the clubs are saying that they need, and I'm not exactly sure where we are on our operation hours for Sunday at this moment, so I'd have to get back to seeing if Beardsley is open on Sunday. I'm not sure right at this moment. So, but as far as a staff point of view goes, we're willing to absolutely support that if the need is shown. Is that correct? Thank you.
I also have a question on this topic. How is that official request made?
If glass enameling, yoga, cards, if anybody came to us with a request or to the operations team and said that we can prove that we're gonna use Sunday operational hours fully, we would make that adjustment.
Yeah, and just to add on that, so what we would want to see is something through Casey Huda, the recreation manager, some request to her, but not just a, hey, we want to go open on Sundays now. Well, okay, we can look at that, but what is the plan? We want to, have some parameters around that. What is it you want to accomplish? How does that going to fit in with what you're doing, and how's that going to help? We will absolutely support it. We just need to have a little bit more than just we'd like to be open on different times or more times.
Director Novello?
Wanted to thank you for interjecting that. That did come up during the meetings that we collaborated on. Wanted to thank whomever came up with the ideas. It was a collaboration, but to bring those committees together so we could hear everything and contribute and make sure we were putting thought into the solution was great. I wanted to thank you guys for that. Also wanted to ensure one of the points of view that came out in the conclusion, I believe it was, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. I was going to say, I believe it was so-and-so, but one of our operations team members had alluded to the fact that the operations team has successfully been able to meet most of these requests by playing what he called Tetris, moving different clubs around and trying to reconfigure. And we're at a point now where there just were no solutions, right, that we could come up with. And everyone really put so much time into this from last summer to try to think through the options. So again, it was left in the hands of the clubs to figure out if scheduling could help in the near term, but scheduling is not the answer here. I just wanted to be sure that that came across. We are out of space for these clubs. There was no other solution available. So good timing for us to be looking at our strategic plan. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? From the audience? And we have a question from the audience. Please sign in with your name and your rec card number, and then announce your name and rec card number.
Bill Weaver, 124087. I'm just wondering if this club, or maybe both of them, are a little bit different than some of our clubs in that it might be something of a production, that there are different stages that they go through within the club. And I'm wondering if you did a process study to ensure that the space is utilized most efficiently for the process that they go through, such that, and in the future, if you do get different space, that will also be part of the study so you can efficiently set up the equipment so that it follows the processes and efficiently uses the space.
A very good point, and yes, that would be considered. Thank you.
And to add to that point, so that's exactly what I'm talking about. So thank you for that. Is that so for example, if the club is looking for additional hours, that's one of the things I'd want to see is, okay, well, how are you going to, what are you doing scheduling wise, and what does your process look like to substantiate why we need more hours? Now, we know we need more space, but, and does a request for more hours, does that help with the space issues? And to Director Novello's point, one of the things that we'll talk about later on when we talk about the strategic plan, but one of those action items on that strategic plan is to look at space opportunities. So this is not done. It's just done for now.
Okay, thank you. No questions online, so we will thank you for that, Carl. We will move on to agenda item 3.02, which is the Bowls USA Tournament discussion. I've asked Nick Turner in the absence of John Chatton, to come up and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I wear many hats. The hat I'm wearing today is president of the Johnson Lawn Bowls Club. And we have been asked by Bowls USA to be one of the hosting locations for the 2025 US Open Lawn Bowls Tournament, in a very similar manner to the way it was hosted last year. It's the premier bowls tournament in the United States. Last year there were 311 competitors from 12 countries. They have men's and women's, pairs, singles, triples, doubles, those kinds of competitions going on. And it takes place over just over a week, with the practice days and rain days towards the end. It involves hosting by not just Sun City West, but also Sun City and the Grand are taking part this year, I understand. And so this competition is not organized by the clubs, it's organized by Bowls USA. And the clubs here, our club here, the club board and the club membership both voted unanimously to take part and host the competition. We would be responsible for things like greens maintenance, and also help with the hospitality setup and breakdown. Bowls USA is running the competition, liaising with the clubs, responsible for the financial side of things and all of the promotions and advertising. And they will work very closely with us here in the clubs, and of course we in the club will work with Todd's people, Sabrina's people, and Casey when it comes to getting any additional support that we need. And that additional support really is a little more work and preparation of the greens on a daily basis from Todd's people. We'll need more care and attention from the janitorial people. We just have one restroom out there. Last year we had some porta potties brought in just in case, because we know that the sewage line out there in the Bowls area can be a little unreliable. And so that's the kind of things that we need. The club will be looking after hospitality. We'll get a stipend from Bowls USA, which allows us to provide snacks and so on and drinks for the competitors. We'll be doing take-up and set-up in the morning and take-down in the afternoons of all of the equipment that's needed. And also, club members who are not taking part in the tournament will also have the use of the fourth green, because Bowls USA will take 3 of our greens. Club members will be able to continue playing on the fourth green, so no club members are going to be displaced by this activity going on over the week. Why here? Why do Bowls USA want to do it again? Well, Bowls USA themselves, in this area, Sun City West have got the best greens in the USA. Thank you to Todd. All the venues are 20 minutes apart. The alternative is Southern California, and you may have competitors whose husband is playing in the men's singles at one venue, the wife is playing in the women's singles at another venue, and they're 4 hours apart. Here, they're only 20 minutes apart. They do a lot of card sharing and ride sharing and so on. It is a great advertisement for our community. I was there last year when the competition was going on, and you hear comments from the players there about, this place is fantastic. This is really good. These greens are really good. And then they say, well, I know this is a retirement community, but what's going on here? And you say, well, that's an auto restoration club. They've got lifts up there that the members can use for their cars. There's a bowling alley over there. There's a gymnasium over there. Go look over that wall at the tennis facility. It's a great advertisement for the community. And I've got the statistics from last year on where everybody came from, but there's 149 US residents here coming in from multiple states, and they want to bowl all year round. So if they're looking for somewhere to snowbird to, these places are very attractive. Nearly 90 Canadians, 89 Canadians coming down to play as well. And interestingly, when you talk to some of the Canadians, it turns out they're already Sun City West or Sun City residents, or they already live in the Grand. But there is more opportunity for, for snowbirding from other people coming down. It's a great advert for the community. So I would request that the governing board give us the go-ahead to do this, and then we'll work with Casey and Bowls USA to get things put in place.
Thank you, Nick. John left me a statement to read. He says the Chartered Clubs Committee reached unanimous consensus to recommend that the board approve the 2025 hosting of the 2025 Bowls USA tournament. So with that, I will open for questions from the board. Director Rhodes?
Two things. One is I am really very supportive of this. I was supportive of it last year, but in reading the data that you provided, normally I wouldn't talk about trivia, but this is trivia on steroids. Bowls are 5,000 years old, the game, invented by the Egyptians. There's still a bowl green in use since 1259 AD in England. And my favorite, during the 14th century, King Richard II had to outlaw this game because it was making his workforce unproductive. So in that case, I say let's bring them on.
Thank you. Any other directors? Director Novello?
Just to be sure, again, as a resident, as director, I love all the things about, we hosted this, or helped host last year, love it. One more time, do we expect any direct additional expense or anything that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, Bowls USA is an entirely voluntary organization, and it has nothing like the resources of, the NFL or, anybody else like that. But they contributed last year financially, and they'll be contributing again this year. I don't know to what extent. When we get the go-ahead here, we'll work with them to understand what it is they're contributing.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Comments from the audience? And I see none online. So what I'd like to do then is reach consensus with the board to move this forward to our our regular meeting next Thursday to take it a formal vote. Do we have consensus to do that? Okay, so we will do this, vote on it for sure next Thursday.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay, governing board agenda 3.03, which is Kirsten Peterson is going to give us a renewal review.
Actually, President Leary, if I may, we reached a quick decision to have the Budget and Finance Committee via me give just a quick overview.
Oh,
and
okay.
Kirsten will step up and answer questions if their directors have any questions. If
Okay.
it was a, sorry, game time decision.
That's fine. So Kirsten, you can start breathing again.
For those who couldn't see her, she looked a little shocked in the back. So, but again, I'm Christine Novello. I'm the treasurer and the chairperson of Budget and Finance. So we had our workers' compensation renewal review that came up at our last Budget and Finance Committee. So a couple of quick points. We're not going to give the presentation here, but you have it here, directors, for your review if you missed the Budget and Finance meeting where we went into this in detail. Something to remember for those who are new to it is that all of these renewal rates are predicated on a metric called EMOD. It's an industry standard metric, and it is a 3-year reflection of how we're doing, basically, on these reviews. So we had, and basically we're looking forward, and this is embedded in the presentation, we had a very, very bad year in 2022 as rec centers of Sun City West as an employer, with an extremely high loss ratio. It's unfortunate, but that's what workers' compensation is there for. And because of the nature of that metric, the industry, all providers look at a combined reflection of over 3-year look back. So we're still working with that 2022 EMOD loss ratio. And whether it's good or bad, that 2022 finding will haunt us, if you will, on our renewal rates until it drops off. And that will be until our 2027 renewal. I believe that would be 2 more years. As a result, it is what it is. There is our provider, Marsh & McLennan, went out and shopped for the best possible rates. We went through all of this in detail. We do have a renewal, a rate increase for next year that we will have to take on. Remember, too, that in terms of proactively measuring and improving that experience modification, we've had great results since 2022. I cruised past that. Really great results, and in particular, 2024, we had an extremely excellent outcome with all the proactive work of our human resources team and all of us to improve a variety of the way that we work with our employees. We will continue to improve our experience modification so that in a few years, by the 2027 renewal, if all continues to go well, we will see a significant improvement. And that came from not just Marsh & McLennan, but from all of our actual insurance folks that have come back and bid. So we're heading in the right direction. They cited us, they cited a lot of very positive moves in our trends as employers. So again, we're moving in all the right directions. We're forecasted to potentially decrease those premiums in future years, but at this point, that was the finding. So the Budget and Finance Committee asked a series of questions, but it was a very clear consensus that everything looked to be expected with our insurance renewal. So that being said, if I missed anything important, Kirsten, no. So that's where we are with the renewal, and that's the packet you have in your. We are happy to take questions if there are any from directors.
Okay, are there any questions from the directors on the board? Director Rhodes, you didn't raise your hand.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
I understand it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Okay, and there are none online. So with that, thank you, Director Novello. Our next agenda item is 3.04, which is it's a discussion on new policy L14 for recording of meetings of the governing board and standing committees. That's also Director Novello.
Back to me. So we've discussed this at a few of our workshops now. What you have in your packets, what we're seeing on screen is the outcome in the most recent draft. This has been reviewed. Per our last discussions, we wanted to ensure that we are in alignment with all applicable ARS, our Arizona statutes, for any organization, especially for a planned community. So we did align with that to the best of our abilities, and we had our legal representative, Mr. James Hazelwood, reviewed and commented as well. There were very few changes that Hazelwood proposed, and you can see, I believe there was really only one, not even major, but one wording change that we took on, and otherwise we're in alignment with statutes. And what this proposed policy would do is say we will record any of our governing board or standing committee meetings or committee meetings that occur that are broadcasted over the internet or broadcasted in any way. So we'll record those. We charge our general manager and therefore the staff with coming up with a retention policy that will align with applicable state law, and that we will ensure minimum compliance with that retention policy as set forward. We just want to ensure that the meetings are recorded, retained, and made available to any owner member. That's it.
Okay, any questions for Director Novello? Director Horvath.
Yes, so we're going to continue to use YouTube to
That's an
to record.
operational decision, and in the short run perhaps, but would our general manager tell us where we stand with that?
No, well, Director Novello, you answered it correctly. So for the short term, that's the plan. Whether long-term, based on whatever changes we may find as we go forward, looking at some of our different systems, IT systems, that could change. But for now, at least, the YouTube is going to be the mechanism.
The important thing, Director Horvath, is that we believe that we want to, however it's done, operations will decide if there are any changes, that recordings will definitely be made available to our owner
Okay,
members.
thank you. Yeah, because in 4.3, it talks about the general manager adopting appropriate method to retain, but it didn't talk about recording. So I thought I'd ask that question.
Let me make sure. I'm pretty sure that that's in there too. Let me just cite the actual. I'm looking now. Let's see. I believe it just says that the meetings will be recorded in some manner and retained. We want to leave the mannerism open so we don't have to change the policy.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Yes, Director Graham.
Thank you, President Larry. My question stems from, we've only recently started recording meetings, is my understanding, just within the last few years.
Since 2021, when we started broadcasting, that's correct.
Okay.
That's
Now,
my understanding.
my understanding, we're referencing the state statutes. We are not required to record these meetings,
That is correct. My understanding as well.
okay?
Nor are we required to broadcast them.
Nor are required. Now, we also do not prevent our members from recording meetings. They can record them.
That is correct.
So where does that leave us with the fact that we're recording these, but these are not official documents of the community?
We've been advised previously that it's exactly that, Director Grom, that they're not official documents. They're retained for the reference of our owners and members. Right? So we're not required to do it. This policy says that we're directing our operations team to record those meetings.
If I may, so what it says is you're not required to record or broadcast, but if you do, then you're required to retain. So if the board were to make a decision that we're no longer going to broadcast on in any fashion, then it'd be a moot point. I doubt that that's going to be the direction from the board. So, but because we do, we then are now subject to retaining those recordings, which we not only retain them through YouTube, we also do retain them on our own servers as well as backup.
That's right.
Okay, I didn't quite see those words laid out explicitly that if we record, we're required to retain. What I saw was if we prevent the members from recording, then we have to record.
It is in the ARS. It's in the statute itself. That if you record, you will retain.
It says that.
Yes. The statutes that are referenced in this policy.
Well, you also referenced the Condominium Act, which we don't comply with. We don't need to comply with.
That, again, the changes that are included in this are coming from our legal representation. It was not my individual decision, Director Grom.
But then on the other, we do have somewhat of a records retention policy. Are we going to retain these recordings forever? Like some documents that were required?
Yes.
We don't reflect that in this.
Nor do we need to. That's an operational policy, Director Grom.
Well, and also it's, by statute, and that, to the point, I think the idea is that if it were to change at some point, but what's happening is because we are recording these, we are creating a record, and because we created a record, we must retain that record, just like any other records.
The policy that we've
Per
drafted.
state statute.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
apologies.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
The policy that's drafted before you says that the retention will go along, it's referring to a records retention policy that's operational in nature that I believe is either sitting with or will be sitting with the general manager and his staff. We don't create that policy. That's an operational policy, records retention.
Okay. Director Horvath?
Okay, but have we specified in this that we're asking the general manager to provide that sort of service for us?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't read that.
Let's, if we can scroll down, I'm struggling up here to find in this stack of paper, my stack of paper. So it is in 4.3. The RCSCW general manager shall adopt an appropriate method to retain all recordings.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear.
I read that before.
Okay.
But,
Director Grom?
Okay, maybe I'll just ask the question, since legal has reviewed this supposedly, do they
It is not supposedly Director Grom. It is actually, we have record of his review and his comments on file for your review if you wish.
okay, so he recommends we record our meetings.
He did not say that. He said, if we record, we must retain.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything down at this end? Okay. Any questions, comments from the audience? There is nothing online. So with that, if we can get consensus to move this to our meeting, our regular meeting next week, where we will vote on. Do I have consensus? Yes? Okay, we have consensus to move it to the meeting next week. Thank you. Next is 3.05, which is an update on the non-resident bowling leagues. Director Rhodes.
Thank you. I am also the chairman of the Sports Pavilion and Bowling Committee. And during the February committee meeting, one of our members voiced a concern regarding the formation of a bowling league during the summer period, the summertime, and questioned the age limits, because basically this was a rumor that people had heard that there's a group that wants to form a bowling league, and most of the members are non-residents, and they're under 45 years old. Well, we sat down and have had multiple meetings over this. I've talked with Gary Zarek and some of the other key people here. The major point that we're looking for is, do we comply with our policy, our existing policy? And the answer to that is yes, we do. When in actuality, what the rumor was, it was just a rumor, but we do have a summer league, and there are non-residents that are under 45 that are in there. But when you look at our policy, the policy says that if there's someone under 45, in a group of six, at least one person has to be 45 years old. So when we apply that to the criteria that's used in formulating the leagues, we're clearly in compliance with our own league, with our own policy. So there is a revenue issue involved in this, and as I said in the Sports Pavilion and Bowling Committee meeting, and being a former chairman and treasurer of this organization, didn't think I'd ever say it, we don't take into consideration the money that's involved. We are interested in, do we comply with our policy? And the answer to that is yes. So this is now a moot issue. We are in compliance. We're in compliance by age, and we're in compliance by league.
Thank you, Director Rhodes. Any questions, comments from the board? Yes, Director Pieskoski.
How many are on a team? I'm just making sure that there's one person that's going to be 45, right, on a team?
Yeah, yes. Jolene, I can't answer
okay,
that.
but
I
there's
can't
only one
answer that.
person.
There are very strict rules on formulating leagues.
Right.
And when you look at the policy, it says that in a group of six, and I'm assuming 6 is the number, and I can say that only by a supposition, that one of the people has to be 45. Okay. Didn't say they had to be a resident. Said they had to be 45.
Correct.
Okay. And if you're interested in the revenue that's involved, it's somewhere in the $7,500, $10,000 range. So, and it's during a time of the year where there's no one around. As a matter of fact, I was told we could shoot a cannon down the aisles and you would miss everybody. So, did that clarify you?
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the audience? There are no questions online. So thank you, Director Rhodes. We will move on to 3.06, the recommendation for the revised golf policy 3.0 or G06. Director Grom.
Thank you, President Leary. Yesterday, the Golf Committee met, and we reviewed the redlined policy that you see before you, and the committee gave its consensus to forwarding this to the governing board with our recommendation that this be adopted, and that'll be done at the next governing board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Director Grom. Any questions, comments from the board? Okay, questions, comments from the audience? Y'all are making this easy. That's why I just jinxed myself. Okay, there are none online. So with that, do I have consensus to move this to our next meeting to vote on? Okay, consensus achieved. We will vote on it at our next meeting. The next discussion is revised policy M03. This is mine. I introduced this back in December of last year and waited until we got the issue of the wristbands taken care of before we approached this again. So what I've done here is the feedback I had was to make it a little more general. So what I've tried to do is remove some of the specificity from it. So you can see the red lines here. And the other changes are, of course, the numbers changed because I added another statement in there, 4.14 was added. So if we could have discussion on this, I would be glad to take questions. The intent of this, as a reminder, is that there is a general statement that all of our recreation facilities are for the benefit of our members, but that has never been put into writing. So the purpose of this, of modifying this policy, is to put that into writing. Any questions, comments? Yes, Director Rhodes.
I just want to comment that I think that this is a very critical policy. I applaud you for working on this. But the other thing that I want to point out to those that may not have it in front of you right now, it does talk about our multiple day pass, our multiple guest pass. So multiple day.
Yes, after that was approved, then I used that
Right.
as the basis for
And
this.
that in itself is a pretty major accomplishment.
Director Horvath.
Thank you, President. Yeah, 4. What's now 4, all RCSW cardholders must have a recent photography taken within the last 5 years on their RSCW rec cards. Do we have a process for doing that to get our members in for that?
That was actually out of the scope of what we are looking at. We're only looking at the red line changes that were made. That is a separate issue. It's a separate topic.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to visit that, I guess I guess I'll turn it over to the general manager and let him answer that.
Yeah, and what I would ask maybe is Riley to come up. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest.
So then maybe we could ask that you come back next time at our next workshop. Or Riley, do you want to? All these game time decisions.
Good morning and thank you. We revamped with the new branding about 5 years ago. We had all of the members come in and exchange their cards for new photographs. And as they come in to make payments, we do review the card, make sure the photograph matches what they look like today, and then we will replace it for free at that time.
So does that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it does. You know, I've been here 14 years and I still look very young.
Okay. That's right. Okay, there's a violation, I think, you know. Okay. Was there another question down here? Yes, Director Graham?
Yes, I want to, thank you, President Leary. Under what is now redlined 4.2.1.4, guests visiting the R.H. Johnson Library facility may not check out materials. That's a true fact. The other issue is, though, I believe the library handles guests a bit differently than this policy. You don't have to pay a guest fee just to come in, like for the day with a member, unless you're using one of their activities. So that's more similar to what's under the redlined 4.3.1, more similar to golf and bowling, that you only need a guest pass if you're actually going to use one of their events that they offer. So does that need to be noted? Or are they operating not in compliance with the policy?
Again, the same answer I gave to Director Horvath is we're only looking at what has been redlined, aside from the numbering. If you want to bring that up and take that as your to-do, we're glad. Will you take that as a to-do? Okay. So let's please wait until we make a decision on what happens with this. Any other questions or comments from the board? Both good questions. Any questions, comments from the audience? None online. With that, can I get consensus to move this forward to our regular, Director Rhodes? Oh, okay. Get consensus to move this forward to our regular meeting to vote on. I see heads shaking, so that is, we'll take consensus on that, so thank you. And the other item is Director Graham will take the to-do to visit his question that he raised. Director Novello, 3.08 is an update from the B&F Investment Strategy Working Group.
Thank you, President Leary. Nothing to look at here. We've had several updates from the working group and the Budget and Finance Committee. Budget and Finance is continuing to work on the policy proposed red line. We expect to have this at the Governing Board workshop in April for your review. But of course, first, that's dependent on the fact that, assuming that Budget and Finance as a committee will review it and recommend it for forwarding. But that's our current timeline, is to have a red line to this group, the Governing Board workshop, at our April workshop.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions for Director Novello? From the audience? And none online. Okay, thank you for that, Director Novello. Okay, 3.09, full proposed 2025-26 CIP R&R 50K plus review. And we got a number of people involved. Carl?
Again, my pleasure to be up here today. Before we get started in this, I'd like to just take this opportunity. Most of you are aware that I'm retiring April 25th. Really excited about that. It's been my pleasure to serve here at the community. It's been just an amazing part of my career. But I'd like to introduce our new CIP manager, Dave Johnson.
Well, good morning, Board. I have had the privilege of working for some of the largest, best construction companies the last 35 years. And at this point, I am ready for stepping into this role and learning exactly how all of this type of approval process and review process works. At the heart of what I aim to do in the next several years before I retire is to serve. And so I want to just say that I'm excited to be here and look forward to working together with you all. Thank you.
Welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you for that moment. Here we are in March, and I'd like to go over any changes that have formulated between February and March, just so as everybody's aware. All committees have seen the same presentation in March, and I'm going to basically give the quick review of any changes. So starting off with our color blocks, which represent new capital, proposed capital, R&R proposed capital, both in the recreation divisions and golf, and then our allowances. So for March, the general manager and IT director have added the RCSCW website redesign and phone app, which is going to get discussed a little bit more in detail. This change has added $300,000 to the proposed budget, with a revision to our allowances where we reduced the allowances from $520,000 to $420,000. So a reduction there and an add in the actual new category. That is the only changes in new. Moving over to the recreational side of repair and replacement items, the only addition for March is the workstations for HR and marketing and PR departments for $25,000. This is to facilitate rearrange staffing, some additional staff being proposed in the FY2025-26 budget, and new desk spaces. Moving through golf, there are no changes in March. There is the reference changed in allowances that I mentioned, where we reduced the previous month's discussions from $520,000 down to $420,000. And finally, February's discussions on capital projects, the tennis court windscreens at R.H. Johnson, discussed at length with Properties Committee and the tennis club, that they felt that our assessment of the windscreens could be prolonged, and they asked if we would just defer it to a future year. So that is what we came to consensus and did. So we reduced the budget by $75K and moved that R&R item to a future year. Just as a reminder, in our deferred list, softball outfield electronic scoreboard has been removed from the budget because it is being fully funded by Liberty Buick and approval from the governing board. So that $70,000 was reduced in our budget. And from simply over reviewing some of our equipment here, the Russ Boston facilities maintenance did not require a pool circulation pump for $14,135 in this next proposed budget. Those are the only updates to the budget. I would like to invite Kyle Hockman to review the actual presentation first line item. Terry, if you could throw up page 3 of the presentation. I'd like to quickly review that our proposed FY25-26 budget, again, fully reviewed by Budget and Finance and fully reviewed by the other committees for their relevant discussion points for projects. Our new capital is being budgeted at $490,000. Repair and replacement for the recreation center, for the recreation departments, $2 million. Repair and replacement for golf and landscaping, $2,700,000, and allowances at $420,000 for an overall budget of $5,627,153. And just as a reminder, that through our due diligence of review of capital projects that are repair and replacement that come up each year, we deferred $1,212,000 to future years.
Director Novello.
If I may add, thank you very much. This has been reviewed, as you mentioned, Carl, by the Budget and Finance Committee. The Budget and Finance Committee has not yet completed its recommendation for pullouts. Just so that the board is aware, the Budget and Finance Committee will be forwarding those recommendations to the governing board from our April 1st meeting, just so that we're all aware. But we have reviewed and asked extensive questions. I'm sorry to interrupt.
And I would say as a blanket statement, all committees are in that same timeframe.
So I'm going to ask Director Novello, you used the term pullouts. Can you please explain what that means?
Certainly. Every committee is asked to review these capital improvement requests and identify if there are any items on the capital request that each committee believes would require further review from the governing board. We recommend that those be pulled out for separate review. Otherwise, we recommend moving forward as a whole. And all committees do that.
So they are not pulled out to be no longer considered?
No, not at all. Perhaps they're pulled out for additional discussion.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that, because there's been misunderstanding what that
Thank
term
you.
means.
It has been a misunderstanding in the past. Thank you.
Okay, Carl, turn it back over to you. Want it, Kyle?
Going over to the new capital areas, I mentioned we have the new ad, and I'm going to ask Kyle Hockman to represent that.
Good morning, board. Been here a few months now, and a lot of requests from the community and the employees and board members about just the kind of redesign of the website along with other technology upgrades. So this is one project that we wanted to kind of get working on as soon as possible. So we kind of envisioned the current website now is kind of segmenting it into like a public website for suncitywest.com, more of like a marketing website to really promote the community, highlight the community, highlight the real estate, the clubs, that type of thing. And then also a member website where it'd be more utilitarian, where all of your tea times and the event scheduling and board docs and those type of things would be kind of on that, and we would have an app for that too. So everything would kind of be at your palm of your hands to book a tea time and buy event tickets, pay your member dues, that type of thing. So we're going to start now by doing that segmentation between like the public and the member side, but then we're going to need some help. Right now, we kind of have an out-of-the-box solution, and it's not going to really fit the needs of what we need. So we're looking at custom design and some custom integrations with all of our kind of third-party products we use for TEI, Purple Pass, the tea times, everything, integrate them so it's all kind of very seamless inside the app. And it'll be behind a login, then we can kind of discuss like the financials and stuff are on the public website, kind of putting that behind the login. So we can really market itself on the Sun City West web page, but then have all of our kind of information about the community that we use on a daily basis as members. Employees here would be at our fingertips on the app side, member side. One thing we're looking into is, especially on the public side, is like a integration into like a real estate, like Zillow website. So people, when they look at the community webpage, they can look at the houses right for sale in the community and that type of thing. So that type of integration is really out of the box. We would like to look into custom design. So this is kind of like a starting point. Talking to Stephen and Cliff, this is kind of a priority. So we didn't want to wait for another whole year. We don't have everything vetted out money-wise, but talking to some other communities and things, it's kind of like the price tag that we have to kind of get this project started and rolling pretty well. So we have more of a defined scope and go from there.
Director Horvath.
Yeah, just for clarification, so the member side of it would require a login, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, like we would have to integrate with your TEI login, whether TEI member portal, we kind of use that and have everything behind, or you have the custom integration where it's a single sign-on, where we're hoping it's the same thing as your current TEI portal login, so we don't have to remember another password, another user.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Any other questions? Okay, Director Novello.
Thank you, President Leary. One of the things that we discussed at Budget and Finance when we looked at this is that it's very, very difficult to get ahead of, we have an annual budgeting process. If we don't approve something, then nothing will happen for another 18 months. And I think there's been a lot of excitement built around, hey, let's do something. And now we're looking at this, it looks a bit open-ended. I'm not criticizing,
No,
right?
100%,
So
yeah.
one of the things that we suggested in Budget and Finance, I don't know, I think the other committees may have had some similar feedback, help us understand a bit more of the scope of what we can expect. Because $300,000, as you explained it to us at Budget and Finance, will not complete this effort, but it gets us a certain of the way forward. Is that
Yes, correct. So I think the beginning scope is to kind of segment and create two different experiences for the public. and the member side. So right now, everything's kind of all over the place on the website. So a lot of that reorganization we can kind of start doing ourselves. But when it comes to some of the custom integrations, like right now, you click on something that takes you to an external website for Purple Pass or something like that for the events ticketing. We would like, if possible, to get integration so it seamlessly looks like it's our website, or plug in a better user experience. So that's kind of the beginning, like I said, like really market suncitywest.com with real estate listings and just a lot more content media, flyover videos of the property, that type of thing would be the initial scope.
Just so we're all clear that this is not going to complete this journey, but it's a step, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? From the audience? Okay, there are none online, so thank you, Kyle. Appreciate that.
Governing board, if there's any other questions on our presentation, whether it's comments of change or the opportunity of the documents that you have in front of you of anything over 50,000, I'm here to entertain those questions. Otherwise, we will be moving forward into the April presentations with our committees. It's my pleasure to announce that Dave will be carrying the presentation torch from that point forward. We're excited about that. Get his feet wet, and again, it has been my pleasure.
Thank you, Carl. Any other questions for Carl from the board? Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Carl. Oh, we have a question from the audience.
Nick Turner, 131829. It was just it's not actually about a change, it's about an existing item on the new item. There's the indoor pool painting at Palm Ridge is there as a new item. I was just wondering why that wasn't R&R.
That has been on the budget since September.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have asked this question last September, but it's just suddenly occurred to me that indoor painting sounds like it should be R&R, not new. That was all I.
So you're questioning the categorization?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Why is it new? Because painting of our facilities is not an asset. It's not a choice that is something that we choose to track. We budget that as not as an operating expense, but we make those decisions on whether some painting is an operating expense or some become a capital project based on the value of the expense. So
okay, yeah, I understand now. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Carl, thank you very much. Okay, next agenda item is 3.10, the proposed financial plan, the operating budget. CFO Cliff Swan.
Thank you, President Larry. Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. Just going to take a few hours to go over this budget, and then maybe we can break for dinner. No. We've presented this a few times in different phases and at different committees, specific divisional P&Ls and budgets, and so I'm going to take some time this morning and with some of the feedback added to this presentation, as well as there's some last-minute changes that aren't reflected on here that we discussed at golf yesterday, so I'll talk about those as well. And we'll work through this. I just want to, first and foremost, thank the Budget and Finance Committee, Director Novello, for all the hard work that they put into this, and then as well as Mr. Grom and Mr. Rhodes at the committee meetings going through the budgets to help us validate and explain some of the line items. And it's been a great process and all the feedback from the community. So I'm happy to present this here today. And with that said, let's get started. Okay, so budget goals. First and foremost, we got to keep the place looking nice. It's collectively 46 years old. Some of the buildings were built in the early 90s and throughout the 80s. But the facility with 53 buildings and all the different amenities and services we provide here, our budget goal every year operationally and our capital improvement budget is to keep the place looking nice. That's the first and foremost thing. We want to provide the facilities that our owner members bought into here and provide them at a high level. So first and foremost, that's the main objective. We have a reserve fund that we have to use to fund the repair and replacement of these items. So we have to make sure that this budget does that, and it does. As well as new capital projects keep the place vibrant, competitive with other communities, keep it attractive. So when people access the website and they go on the Google or the Zillow integration, they can see what they're buying into, and it looks really nice and it has something for them. So that this budget does that as well. And then finally, this budget has all the services that we provide in this budget that we've provided since I've been here are also budgeted for in this budget. And I would argue with some enhancements. So yeah, this budget, the budget goals, these are our budget goals every year, and this budget accomplishes those goals, or sets us out to accomplish those goals. So all the services, I just referenced those. You can see this wheel here has all the different kind of rolled up various services that we provide here in the community. And we have to put an operating budget together to operate all of these different amenities and facilities, as well as a capital improvement budget to make sure we're repairing and replacing some of the aged stuff that's aging out and replacing those items. So this is an overall financial plan, annual financial plan, the budget portion of that, and it's the capital and the operating budget. So I like to show this just to show what we're doing here and why we're putting this together. So to put any budget together, you have to have a forecast of where you're going to end up in the current year. So we put the forecast together for this year. As you can see on the revenue side, we're going to finish a little bit behind budget, but not too bad on 29, almost 30 million in revenue, about approximately 200,000 off of budget. However, on the expense side, we're anticipating total savings of approximately 235,000. So we're right on budget, and we're in good shape, and we'll see how the year tracks. And we still have some big months coming up in our golf, which is 40% of our overall operating revenue. So that is always that could swing one way or the other, but we feel good about where we're at right now. And then finally, in the capital section, we've got our APFs, which are for the most part right on budget, a little bit off at 37,000, and then our reserve fund allocation will be right on. So we're in pretty good shape in the capital section, and with an net investment income of approximately 981,000. Through February, we're at about, our net change is at about 1.7 million positive. So we'll see how that tracks throughout the year, but we feel like 981 is good on the investment income side. Okay, so the 63% of our overall budget is attributable to wages and benefits. So we wanted to take some time to go through our org charts and our various divisions. But first and foremost, we have a management team here, and I wanted to show you, each one of our managers here and how many direct reports they have within their various departments. Some of the managers are cross-divisional, so they have multiple departments that go across divisions. So, for example, Todd Patty has golf maintenance, but he also has landscape, which is in the rec division. And so I just wanted to show, we'll get into those individual divisions. So if we look at the admin division is not only finance, IT, marketing, PR, HR, but it's also facilities maintenance and membership. So that's what makes up the administrative division. And that division has 54 FTEs in this budget, 60 positions. Going to the rec division has 166 positions and 94 FTEs. Kind of a special note here I talked about already is landscape is in the rec division. I didn't know if you knew that. And also our events and clubs, special events, scheduling, and clubs is in our rec division, as well as our library. And of course our rec center. So what are all these people doing? Or, why do we have all these people? I hear that sometimes. Well, we're busy, okay? We have if you just take non-club activities, we have over 500,000 check-ins with these different types of activities at our rec centers and our sporting venues. Pretty extensive. And again, this is excluding what happens with clubs. So this is just our members, and this excludes guests as well. But this is just our members and utilizing our facilities. So, we need a staff to take care of this. I mean, we just need, that's why we need these people. Now, if we look at distinct members, so we like to see how many of our members are actually utilizing the services that they're paying for through their rec dues. And we have approximately 22,000 of our approximately 28,000 members check in at our different rec facilities. And that includes golf. But you can see the one that always sticks out to me that I'm always just surprised to see is the library and how much engagement we have with the library in our community. It's pretty impressive, 8,800 individual members. But golf's got 7,400. We're looking to grow that. We feel like there's some opportunity there to grow our golf utilization with our membership. But 7,400 so far, 7,400 individual distinct members last year golfed in the community. So 22,000 of our members are using our various facilities. And then this was really surprising to me, and along with the next slide, but scheduling and events have booked approximately 6,500 bookings at our various facilities. Okay, so this is all of the, so it's not if a club has a room, but if a club needs the lecture hall, or if the golf clubs, which use Kuntz to do their meetings, they need to book one of the card playing rooms. So in our scheduling department, we booked last year almost 6,500 events at our various facilities here. So this parlays into the rec staff and the FAs that have to tear down and put up all the tables and chairs and set up for the dinners and all the various things, the events, the dances, the bands, all these different things. That is all happening in our scheduling department and then cascading into our various buildings and staff. So I just wanted to give some insights into some of the operational things that we're doing here at the recreation level with all of those employees. Now, switching over to golf. Golf is its own division, but we like to break golf into two subdivisions. We've got operations and maintenance. In our operations division, we have 149 positions in this budget and 49 FTEs. So Pat and his team run 7 golf courses. So that's approximately 7 FTEs per golf course. The golf courses are open 7 days a week, sometimes 10 to 14 hours a day. And that's the staff that we have to staff our golf courses. Now, we do have some closures and things like that happen throughout the year, but ultimately 7 FTEs per golf course if you spread that out over the 7 courses. So we wanted to try and give some insights into how we compare to other surrounding golf courses. There's really no national data on the operations end for golf courses because they're all kind of different. Some of them have large pro shops and banquet halls and restaurants and all these various things. So we took a poll. Pat called some of his counterparts at Sun City, at the Grand, and at Pebblebrook. And when we took those 3 communities and averaged their FTEs per golf course, they were at approximately 10.3. We are at 7. So we feel really good about how we staff our courses. And there's still some nuances between their course types and our course types. So we feel like we do a pretty good job with the staff that we have at our courses, and we do it efficiently. So what are we doing with that staff, that operating staff? Well, we've got 320,000 rounds of golf in this budget. Last year we had almost 328,000 rounds of golf at our 7 golf courses. So we're very busy. And in terms of utilization of our members versus non-member, we had 260 8,000 of the 328,000 rounds of golf last year come from our members. And then, yeah, and what did I say? 7,400 or 7,500 of our members are golfing that many rounds of golf, which is incredible. Maybe one day I'll get there. But yeah, and in terms of our non-member golfers, we had almost 60,000 rounds of golf come from our outside or non-members golfing at our courses. And that's really important because if we didn't have non-members golfing here, we'd still have 7 golf courses, right? So every nickel that generates helps subsidize the operations of our golf courses. Okay, so that's really important when we talk about golf and how important it is to have those that non-member revenue. On approximately 12 million in revenue, non-members make up about 3.2 million of that, which is pretty significant. And again, if that 3.2 million wasn't coming from outside the community, it would have to come from somewhere. Okay. Right. So golf maintenance. Todd and his team, golf maintenance is one of those departments that, we have some turnover in that department. And part of the reason for that is it's a hard position to fill. I mean, you've got people out in the elements, and it's not an easy job. And so we have 86 positions in the budget. There's approximately 87 FTEs. That's due to overtime. But overall, Todd works miracles with the staff that he has. And I want to share some industry data because we do have some industry data when it comes to golf maintenance. So when we look at golf maintenance, we have, if you take Todd and Dan, his assistant, out of the FTE count, we have about 12 FTEs per golf course. And when you compare that to the USGA standard, we are about the middle of the low range in terms of what they recommend to have per golf course. And then if you look at the local chapter, the Arizona chapter of Cactus and Pine, you'll see that we're below, they recommend 14 per golf course, and we're at 12. Now, we feel like we budget what we need, and we end up getting by with what we have because we don't average 12 per golf course because we do have 6 to 8 positions that we're trying to fill at any given point in time. Sometimes it goes down to 4, but ultimately we are trying to fill those positions, and we do have to supplement with outside services when we don't have those positions. So in this budget, we budget for those, and then if that doesn't, if we don't have those positions filled, we offset that savings in payroll with some outside services to make sure that we can get the things done that we need to get done. But we're in pretty good shape in this budget when it comes to FTEs per golf course. And then finally, sports pavilion. I gave a little more detail in the sports pavilion because it would have been like 3 boxes if I didn't. But here's some more detail in the sports pavilion for our bowling. 16 FTEs for the year. The bowling FTEs changed in 2022 because we added Lizard Acres. It was 14 per year, and when we added Lizard Acres, it became 16 per year, and it's been 16 per year since. So that's what the bowling center, the sports pavilion, looks like. Okay, so in this budget, we're budgeting a 5% increase in wages and benefits. So overall FTEs is 300. There's 3 additional FTEs in this budget compared to last year's budget, and I'll talk to you about what those are. But there's a 3 FTE change in the administration department. There's 1 FTE in golf ops, and then we reduced an FTE in recreation. So if you look at our FTE since 2022 at 310 versus the budget of this last year at 297, and then the budget of this year at 300 FTEs. So the FTE change details. So when we look at the FTEs and look at it divisionally, let's talk about the admin division first. we'll start with the finance team. So the finance team, which is my team, is reducing their FTE by 1.3. We have a position called the reserve analyst position that we added 2 years ago, and Pete is in that position, and Pete's joining Carl in retirement land, and when we found that out that was going to happen, and Pete and I talked, and that's part of the impetus behind Smart Properties and bringing that aboard, and we'll have a significant savings there because we're not going to fill Pete's position, and with the Smart Properties software and just redistributing the other things that Pete does throughout the finance team, we can create a savings there for the association, and that's what we're going to do with that position. Our purchasing position in the past was a full-time position. Again, we've reevaluated that. We had some turnover there, reevaluated that position, and we're bringing that down to a part-time position, and that'll save us a partial FTE as well. So the total savings in the finance team is 1.3 FTEs. In the membership department, we have a 1 FTE increase. This was the collections person that we had to operationally made sense to add after the changes in the Arizona statutes for collections and collecting and what we can and can't and when we can and when we can't. So I have a slide on that later on to talk a little bit more detail. So there's a position change there in the membership department. In our HR team, HR and safety, first of all, the safety position, we're going to make that a full-time position. We want to make that a full-time position because, with all the different facilities, we talked about our E-mod rate earlier. We want to be more proactive with our safety program, and to do that in a part-time role just doesn't work for us. And it's not the best, it doesn't create the best outcomes for the community. And we feel like we can do a much better job there, and the return on that will be in savings and claims against our policy, and that's an easy win for the association. It'll more than pay for itself. And then in our HR position, I'll get into the details on that, but we're adding an HR person. I've got some industry standards that we'll talk about here in the slide coming up, and we'll talk about that. So that's a 1.3 change in HR. And facilities maintenance, you met Dave earlier. He's also affectionately known as Carl's Jr. We added him. Carl, we had the luxury of Carl being able to, Carl was able to wear a couple of different hats for us, and it's been great, and he's brought some wonderful efficiencies to the operations, the recreation operations, as well as still holding down the CIP role. And it's been just tremendous for this community, and I can't tell you how he's changed our budgeting process and how much more detail we have in all our operations when it comes to the rec side of the business. And it's just been a wonderful thing. And he's turning it over in really wonderful shape. And we've got some good people now with Sabrina Oliveto and with Dave here that are going to be able to take the helm in those different areas. And this CIP position is not a manager position anymore. It's going to be reporting to Russ Boston, and that's the change in the facilities maintenance department. And that'll be able to take us into the future, and Carl's really set us up very well for that. Thank you. And then in our IT team, you met Mr. Hockman. We've hired that position, but that's a position change budget to budget, and we all are already seeing the benefits of that. That's in this budget as well. In the golf operations division, we'll talk about the green team coordinator in more detail. I got a slide on that, but we added a green team coordinator in a part-time role. It's causing the FTEs to go up by 1 because we had like a point something in there before that was below 1. So it's a part-time position, but it is increasing the overall FTE by 1. It's just a fraction of it's like a 0.6. And then in our rec division, in talking with Todd, we took a large portion of the work that we do here at RH Johnson and some of the other facilities, we had an issue a couple of years ago with our landscape department, and it was pay us more or we walk, and they walked. And it was unfortunate, but we kind of did the math on it, and we said, you know what, we can keep the people that we have to do a lot of the work that we're doing in the landscape rec division, but we can supplement that with some outside services, and we've been operating that way for a while. And with that said, we had an irrigation position that came up that we kept on. That I'm sorry, not irrigation, a landscape mechanic that we kept on, and with a reduction in the different pieces of equipment that we're not using now, and with the outsourcing that we're doing, Todd is going to take that labor there and absorb that on the golf side with the mechanics he has on the golf side. So that's creating a savings in FTEs in the rec division. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of these ads. So the HR coordinator. So if you look at first of all, we do an excellent job with our HR, with the resources that we have in our HR department. We do some wonderful things, but there's some things that we could be more proactive on, and other things that we want to do with our HR team to help benefit our employees, and which results in safer work environments. It results in employee retention, better employee retention. Our employees are trained better. We're onboarding people better. We're evaluating people better. So if you look at the Society of Human Resource Management, or SHRM, the benchmark for HR per 100 employees is 1.7. Indeed.com, which is not the Society of Human Resource Management, but is in the employee business, let's call it, they even say at 1.4 per 100. So if we took that 1.4 and at the 450 employees we have, industry standard is 6.3 FTEs in our HR department, or 6.3 employees in our HR department. We currently have 3. So we're not looking to add 3 more, but we are looking to add 1 more in this budget. And that will benefit in employee turnover alone. We do a really good job of managing employee turnover. As everywhere, we can always do better, and this will help us do that. And then also just being proactive overall. So that HR coordinator is in this budget. The Green Team coordinator. So in the past, we had an employee who was a part-time employee, but also volunteered to kind of coordinate the Green Team for our 7 golf courses and for our 28,000 members. And the Green Team program is an outreach program that we have in our community that adds distinct golfers in our community. So at 7,400 versus 28,000, we want to bolster and grow that number. So the Green Team program helps us do that. So I just wanted to, Pat put together some data for me, and I put it on the slide, but if you look at last year, they had 290 Green Team golfers, so people that were interested in golf and came to Green Team. Now, they all didn't graduate. They didn't all make it through the program. Some of them made it through the program and didn't become golfers, but 37 did. And of those 37, 18 became avid golfers. Well, that doesn't jive. 17 became avid golfers and golf 42 times a year. 10 became casual golfers and golfed once a month. And if you take the total golf revenue and divide it by the 320,000 rounds of golf, that's about $37.50 per round of golf that we generate at our golf courses. So if you take that $37.50, multiply it by those rounds of golf, by those new golfers, that's going to generate over $30,000 a year in additional revenue. So if you take that over a 5-year period, that's close to $500,000 in revenue. And I just wanted to show why we feel like having someone in-house dedicated on a part-time basis for now, and could still utilize volunteers to help, but really coordinate, take that in-house and coordinate that program so that we can try to grow that even more. And so that's why we budgeted for this position. I've got 2 employees in my own department alone that are community members that did not golf before they moved here, went through the Green Team program, and now are avid golfers. 2. So it works, the program works, and it's the dividends you can see are just tremendous. So we're going to try, and that's one of the initiatives we have in our strategic plan that we're going to hear about later. But we're looking to grow our membership golf. And I'll say too, there's 40, Stephen, 40 initiatives or action items in our 41 action items. There's 19 of those that are going to be accomplished in this budget. Okay, so those are in this budget, and this is one of those items. But yeah. Okay, so how do we rate in terms of our salary? So we talked about a overall increase in our wages and benefits, and one of the things I'll show you in detail, a little bit more detail, is what makes up that. But we've put in the budget a merit increase. Now the merit increase helps us stay relevant when it comes to how much we pay versus what the market is. And in terms of associations, so if we take the immediate associations around us, we do a pretty good job between our pay and our benefits to attract and keep employees. And the reason why that happens is every year we put in the budget a merit increase for our employees. And it's hard to measure what the return on that investment is, but I'm telling you, there is a return, and that we can retain our employees and not have to go to market. Because every time, the higher skilled position you go for in the market, the more you're going to pay than what you were paying that person before. That's just fact. And it happens every day here if we have to do that. So if you look at our overall, these different cost centers from bowling to events and scheduling, we're 12% below the average. Now this average is made up, it's from a program that Employers Council uses called Pay Factors, and they have national data. So approximately 60% of the employees, positions and the employees that we had, we were able to find an Arizona comparable for that position in Arizona to do a really specific Arizona market. There were about 40% that we had to go to like a national market to rate. But when we took the average of all of those positions, we fall about 12% on a whole below average. You can see where we have to be more competitive in those in facilities maintenance and landscape maintenance. We have to be very competitive on there because those are very competitive positions in the market. So we have to be very competitive there. President Larry.
Yes, Director Horvath.
Yeah, quick question. What is our average turnover rate for FTEs and for part-time?
We presented that. I want to say it's like 20%. Is that person? Is that overall? It's 20%. Yeah. So the industry average for recreation and events is about double that. So we do a really good job of with our turnover rate. The average tenure of our employees is about 6 years, which is also double. Yeah, so we do a really good job, and this goes to our budgeting process and what we do here. The environment we have, we're fortunate too that a lot of our employees, 60%, live in the community as well. So that helps us with retention as well, and it helps us to keep our wages down because someone can roll out of bed and be at work in 2 minutes, and so that's an attractive thing as well.
Okay, thank you. That's really relevant, I think.
All right. So in this budget, that increase I talked about equates to about $894,000. 730,000 of that is attributable to wages, payroll, taxes, and retirement. So if we bust that out, automatically year over year, we're going to see an increase because we only had the impact of half the increase the prior year that we put in play. So with that increase, it's automatically going to be 141,000 if we didn't budget an additional nickel in this budget for wages. So we have to deal with that as part of this. Another portion of that is we put aside 4%. This is a think of it as a bucket of money or an allocation that we use for our merit increases. And our merit increases could go up to 4%. So employees will be evaluated in our annual evaluation process when it comes to merit increases. We do evaluate our employees on a daily basis, but we have an annual process that we also evaluate our employees and tie it to the merit increase. And so every employee who's a non-minimum wage employee gets an evaluation and is tied to the merit increase. And that bucket of money is used to address those situations. So if you're doing your job, you get a standard increase. If you go above and beyond, you get a little bit more. Okay, that's what we do here. And then from that bucket of money also is used to address if we have to go to market and we have to reevaluate a position on the market and make an adjustment to keep an employee or to attract a new employee. That's what those funds are used for as well. And then finally, we address any other issues that might be created through a minimum wage increase in terms of a compression, especially in our lower skilled position areas. Whenever there's a minimum wage, the positions directly above or even directly above that get impacted. And we have to address those because there's a fairness issue. There's a lot of different things involved there so that we have to address with those funds. President Leary.
Director Horvath?
Yes, so, sorry to interrupt, but, so the merit raise is a cost of living raise as well as?
Yes.
Okay, so that's combined in together.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and there's one, so, 99% of the adjustments we make to pay are done January 1. Okay, so this happens once a year. Couldn't no double raise or COLA raise, then merit rate. No, it's all done at one time for the most part. I mean, there are a couple exceptions when we have turnover and things like that, but yeah.
Director Novello.
To build off of Director Horvath's question, I believe this to be the case, but any kind of a company like this, it's up to 4%, so that means it could be in the judgment of supervisors or managers as low as 0, up to 4, depending on someone's performance, correct?
Yes, if you're getting
I know
zero,
that's a very and this is
you're
not
trying not to get hit by the door on the way out if you're getting zero.
I
But
hate
yes.
to. I just wanted to point out a number of residents. We're all very focused on costs as individuals, right? So a lot of residents have pointed some of this out to a number of us for receiving emails, as I'm sure you may be as well. So just wanted to point out the obvious. Although we want to have the best here, that is a possibility. That there is a sliding scale, and just to confirm, this governing board is not, whatever we decide, does not dictate the percentage here. That's an operational decision. So whether there's more or less money in that bucket, it's really up to you to implement how to do that, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
So in my experience, to build on what Director Novello said, is that, as you said, Cliff, it's a bucket of money. It's a pool of money for merit increases. It's not an automatic.
That's correct.
And in my experience, corporations have tried to use a bell-shaped curve so that you have people at either end, your low performers and your high performers, but the bulk of the people fit within the standard range.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, great. Director Horvath.
Yeah, and also, I'd just like to just say that some of the questions I ask is just because of questions that I've been asked that are relevant for the community to understand.
Yes. Yeah, so thank you, because, we finance people sometimes don't do a great job of explaining things. I've been told that, a couple times by a couple people, so I really appreciate the questions because it helps vet that. And but yes, that's what that that is for. And anything we don't spend stays in operating excess and goes into the reserve fund. As you can see when we report the monthly financials, we don't just go, oh boy, we got $100,000 at the end of the year. Who are we going to give raises to? It doesn't work that way. Okay. All right. So next, we got a minimum wage increase. It's mandated. We don't have a choice. The impact of that's about $36,000. It's a 6-month impact. We're budgeting a 50-cent increase, but we'll find out what that is in September of 2025 for January of 2026. The 3 additional FTEs that we talked about, the net 3, has a $225,000 impact in this budget. Okay? That's the impact of those 3 new overall 3 FTEs. That's all the pluses and minuses. That's the net impact of what those are in this budget. And then finally, we talked about workers' comp. The impact of the workers' comp increase is $50,000. Now, that's on budgeted wages. So if we come in less on wages because you pay per dollar that you pay, that comes down. So if we have a savings in wages, it's not going to be $50,000. It'll be less than $50,000, but we have to budget it at the budgeted FTEs, hours, and payroll dollars that are in this budget. That's creating an increase as well. And then finally, our health insurance. We got about a total of an 8% increase in health insurance. We had a presentation on that in January. I encourage you to watch that if you didn't. That's in this budget, and that again will be an impact in the budget. So the impact of the first 6 months of next year is the impact of the first 6 months of this year, meaning the last 6 months of this year, or January through June. We automatically have an increase, and then we're budgeting an 8%, 7% increase on top of that, plus with the new FTEs. So $164,000 there. Okay, so the other, what would that be? 37% of the budget is other operating expenses, and in this budget we have a overall 3% increase in other operating expenses. These are all the categories, so we're going to kind of roll through these categories and talk about some of the highlights that's creating the different variances. So overall 3% in non-payroll operating expense increase, and first and foremost in utilities, I'm just hoping, and if we don't have another hot summer and fall like we've had for the last 2 years, that maybe we retain all this. But it would be prudent of us to put an increase in there, just based on rate increases that we get from APS that seem to be coming more and more. So there's an increase of a 3% increase in our utilities when it comes to our electric, natural gas, water, and sewer. And that's creating a $55,000 increase in this budget. We do have an $80,000 reduction from our phone and internet systems due to the upgrade that we did to our phone system. So going to a internet-based phone system. At the time, Katie and her team took that route, and it's creating a nice savings in the budget year over year of $80,000, which is wonderful because I think we invested about a little over $100,000 in that system. Is that about right? Yeah. So that's going to pay for itself already in this year. We're budgeting a $15,000 increase in trash removal, and that's mainly due to the golf course cleanups that we're going to be doing at our golf courses that Todd wants to do. The last 2 summer and fall seasons have wreaked havoc on some of the vegetation. I said some of these courses are 40 years old, 30 years old, and the trees and the just saguaros and all the things that's happening. We really just need to take some time and really comb through those and get those cleaned up. So that's creating an increase in the budget there, as well as in the repairs and maintenance category. A lot of that work we have to outsource as well because it's additional work, and we'll do some of it in-house, but we'll have to outsource a lot of that. And so that's creating an increase in our repairs and maintenance as well of $80,000. There's a $52,000 increase for, there's a painting project on El Mirage that's making up $30,000 of that $52,000 increase in the repairs and maintenance building. We started on that project this year, and we want to complete that project for next year, and that's creating an increase in our painting budget for those walls on El Mirage. But once we paint them, they'll be good for another 10 years or so, I guess. There's a $17,000, almost $18,000 reduction in our parking lot seal and stripes. So we'll have Echo and Palm, but this year we had RH Johnson, which is a much bigger parking lot. So we have a significant decrease in that line item year over year. In our landscape maintenance category, good news, we're gonna budget flat on grass seed. We're getting some good information back from the grass seed companies, and we feel that we'll be able to hold the line on grass seed, which is pretty good because that's $600,000, and any increase there is significant, even if it's 1%. So fortunately, we're going to keep that flat year over year. We have a $20,000 increase in chemicals and fertilizers. Todd just in calling around and what he's thinking we're going to have to pay next year, we put that in the budget. We have a $27,000 decrease in our sprinkler repairs. So the efficiencies from the irrigation projects, this is one of those efficiencies, having the ability to repurpose the sprinkler heads on the courses that we put full systems in. So for example, Grandview, all those sprinkler heads we were able to repurpose and use this year, and Echo will be able to do the same thing. So all those all those supplies costs for all that, we're going to save there. And I'm sorry, supplies, repairs and maintenance on those supply costs, as well as just having less issues with our irrigation system in general when we do our irrigation projects. So that's going to create a nice savings for us. And then a $49,000 increase. There's some work that needs to be done on the drain tiles and the French drains around the cart paths and fairways on the golf course. It's time to do some work on those courses, and Todd has a plan put together to get those things done on some of the course closures. We'll be able to do a lot of that in-house, but some of it we'll have to outsource as well. But that's creating an increase. And then down in the equipment category, it's funny, we had a question from Mr. Turner, and he says the equipment category has one subcategory. It's called equipment. So the equipment has various things in it, but I would say probably in terms of equipment means like IT equipment. So day-to-day IT equipment that you can't capitalize, which IT equipment is becoming more and more affordable. We used to capitalize computers, for example. We don't do that anymore. So anytime we have a POS that needs to be updated, anytime we have a computer that gets phased out because it doesn't have the right version of Windows on it, we have to have a budget for that. So IT equipment's put in there. Other equipment at golf courses is put in there. There's just the various, in the sports pavilion, for example, we've got equipment in the sports pavilion that that's dated, then we need to replace, that's in that budget. And then the library, they've got some just kind of really dated tables and chairs and things that aren't on the reserve study that need to be replaced. And in the budget, there's a $19,000 increase because there's just some of the dated areas that we need to take care of and keep it, keep the place looking nice, like I said earlier. Okay, and taxes, license, and insurance, we have a $55,000 increase. We're anticipating an 8% increase in our property and casualty insurance. We're in heated discussions right now with that, with Hayes, and I'll be able to report more on that as we work through the cycle, but by the end of the month, we should have the exact number of what the increase is. I will say, though, that I think it's kind of common knowledge. They reported it, and I talked to the finance director over Sunseed City, but they had like a 53% increase in their property and casualty insurance in 2025. And that was like, $300,000 or something. It's crazy. Yeah. So I've done tours with Philadelphia, who handles most of our insurance, and I had the pleasure of walking around. I forget his name, but I walked around with Russ recently, and they said we're kind of like the gold standard in terms of how our facilities are for a community this size and this old. How our facilities are, how well kept they are, how safe they're set up, how well they follow the OSHA guidelines and all the ADA stuff that we have, all the work and all the budgets that get put together over the years to make sure we keep that stuff up really pays off for us. And it's hard to see that return, but there's a wonderful return there. And I explained that to him, and he never heard it from the finance guy. I said, but I'm telling you, the reason why it looks so nice is because we have a robust reserve fund that takes care of all this stuff. And we have a very good budgeting process that helps fund that. And that's the reason why. But anyway, so there is an increase. We're going to have an increase. It's not because we had massive claims. We're probably paying for California and North Carolina and Florida and all these other places. And they are going out to market, so stay tuned on that. And we'll have a presentation on that as well. Okay, in the operating expense category, yes, we've got other operating expenses. Some of those will be $48,000 increase in our service contracts for IT enhancements. So some of the things that we're looking at doing, we put in this budget. Some of them are deliverables on our strategic plan that is going to be presented here next. And this investment will create savings. It'll create a better product. It'll create better services. And the $48,000 in those service contracts for IT enhancements will really help. One of the things that we're looking at doing in the finance department, for example, is I give a mountain of paper to that guy over there every week of things because of our approval process that we have to go through and our purchase order process, and all that gets banded up in our check runs. And it's a significant amount of paper, and we've been challenged and tasked with figuring out how we can do that without printing so much paper. And that's one of the IT enhancements we're looking at for next year. There's some things in the HR area that we're looking at as well when it comes to employee evaluations. So these things make us better. They create savings. They're not overnight savings, but they do create savings in the long run for us. And we're looking at doing that. There's a $46,000 reduction in our security cameras. So this year we had a project that we're in the middle of still. We won't have that next year, and that's creating a savings year over year in that line item. Legal and professional, we have a $15,000 reduction in professional services. That's mainly due to we had a strategic plan that we've been engaged with this year that we won't be engaged with next year. So we'll have a savings there in terms of the strategic plan itself, and that's driving that reduction. And then in the employee-related category, I hate the name of this category because it just seems like when you say employee-related, it's like we're all going out to lunch and throwing parties. There's a lot of things that go in this category, all right? Uniforms is one of them. Employee development, safety, those are all in employee-related. You know, mileage reimbursement if we have to send someone somewhere. But we've been challenged by our general manager in this area because he feels, and we do too, that we need to make some more investments in our employees, and it's going to create a little bit of an increase for us, and especially in the employee development area, a $7,000 increase. But on whole, in a $30 million budget, it really is a good investment with our employees that make up 63% of that budget. So we're going to have a 7% increase there. I'm sorry, we're going to have a $7,000 increase there. We also have a $4,000 increase for safety. There's some supplies that are just dated that we have to get kind of updated and take care of those things. So that's kind of it. And then just the cost of that stuff overall has increased significantly. It's just amazing what you can charge. You can go online and buy a printer from China for like $5, it seems like, but you have to buy a Band-Aid. It's crazy. So that always just blows my mind. But anyway, the cost of those supplies are going up. And then uniform costs are going up. The shirt costs and at all of our points of sale, we like to have our people uniform and have nice shirts and display our logo and look sharp. So those costs go up as well. And there's a $6,000 increase there. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Cliff. To clarify, Cliff referred to one of our owner members who had sent questions in following budget and finance. If I'm just doing another commercial for this, if I know all of us here on the board will sometimes get those questions, but as the community engages, and we hope you do engage and come to budget and finance committee meetings and look at all of this information, but however you do it, if you see something that you're wondering about in the proposed budget, please say something. That's the only reason why Cliff singled out one particular question, because he received that question. So if you see something you don't understand, why do we have a category of operating expense under the big category of operating expense, was the question at hand. Whenever you have a question, please take a look at that, no matter how big or small the question, and forward it in somehow. If you can't make it to one of our online meetings, you're welcome to email anybody on the governing board or our general manager. But we hope you come and keep us company at a budget and finance meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we also attached to this presentation, there's a kind of a category roll-up. So I'll show you the categories on the financial statement, but we've got a breakout of what's in those categories. And one of the questions, like, you got a operating expense and under operating expense. What is that? And it's kind of like more of a miscellaneous expense, and the bulk amount that was in there is for torch. So that's the torch costs that we have for our torch program. So that kind of gives some insights. But if you do have a question like that, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to answer those. Okay, so cost management highlights. So also attached to this presentation is a listing of some of the cost management things that we've done. It's kind of more of a higher level or bigger picture, but part of our culture, and Mr. Erno has really solidified this and reminds us weekly, is to make sure we're looking at ways to do things better, provide better service, but also that result in savings for the association. And again, it's part of our culture. So some of I want to talk about at a high level some of the things that we've done and that we continue to do in this budget. And one of the main categories is price shopping and competitive bids. So our policy says anything with a $5,000 price tag on it has to be competitively bid. We do that. Anything with a $50,000 price tag has to have sealed bids, which we do. But there's a lot of price shopping that happens for items below that. And we take that seriously. And in the different areas, in Russ's area, in the golf area, and in finance, my purchasing person, there's different things that we do. And with technology and be able to get on the internet and get on Amazon and get on these different things, Granger and all these different areas, we're price shopping those items. And one of those examples is toner. Toner can get really expensive. So what we've done is we've standardized our printers throughout the association. We're in a program where we're doing that right now. And then when we order toner, those come through the finance department. And there's 3 different resources we have for toner. And the prices on that toner literally changes daily. I mean, it could be cheaper on Amazon one day, but cheaper on Staples the next. So we're pricing those toners out and getting the best price that we can when we have to replace those. So that's just one thing that we do in the price shopping and competitive bids. Obviously, when we're doing irrigation projects and we're doing big capital items, we're going out to get the best price that we can. We're value engineering the projects as well to do it in the most efficient way, and also utilize our own resources internally to try and save money on projects. So those are some of the things that we're doing there. In terms of fixed asset management and reserve analysis, I just talked about one, the irrigation project. The irrigation project, President there.
So with the price shopping and competitive bids, you said 50,000 and more. Is that always 3 bids, or is there a limit on bids, or how does that all work? This is a question I get asked a lot.
Yes, we go out to 3. Sometimes we don't get a bid back because they're not interested. But yes, we go out, we try to get at least 3, sometimes we get more on those.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. So the irrigation project, Todd did a presentation on that. We went out on that as well. But that irrigation project, those irrigation systems that are at our golf course currently have a life of anywhere from 25 to 35 years on those irrigation projects. With the projects that we're doing now to replace those, we're putting 100-year pipe in the ground on those. And what's happening was those are large ticket items. Those are anywhere from $5 to $7 million, those irrigation projects, depending on the course. Well, we're able to now, because of the type of materials that we're using, we're able to double the life on those projects. And so what that has an impact on the reserve study, because now when we do our fully funded balance every year, we're dividing it by 70 instead of 35. So we're taking that 5 million, that's 7 million, and doubling the life on it, which means that we have to have less reserve set aside for that, for the fully funded balance. And essentially over time, it's saving us millions. And so when we look at our fixed asset management, and we look at our reserves study analysis, when we take these projects, there's 1.2 million in this capital improvement budget that we move down the line because it's more efficient to continue to use those items and get more life out of them than it is to replace them. Now we add inflation to them, but still there's an analysis that's done on that to determine if that's worth it. And there are items that are worth it, and they got moved down. So those are the types of things that we're doing there. We're also one of the main projects for the finance team, and Pete headed this up, was taking a look at our fixed assets. We've been around for 46, 47 years. Over time, you accumulate a lot of assets. I used this example previously, but I was at a place once where I stepped in and they had the office trash cans on their fixed asset schedules. Okay, so fixed asset thresholds change over time as well. Now it's 5,000, but it wasn't always 5,000. Yeah, so, and then what ends up happening is CFOs change over time, and finance departments change, or general managers change over time, and things fall through the cracks and don't get properly disposed of on the fixed asset schedules. Now, not a major sin, but we spent a tremendous amount of time in the last 8 months going through that fixed asset schedule, and we've got that thing dialed in pretty good. And we've really taken off some of that old stuff that was just, it would say, golf equipment, 1.3 million in 1986, you know. So we went through and just took a lot of those things off, and that's actually creating a savings for us in our personal property taxes that we pay with the state of Arizona. And so that's created a savings area as well. So looking at those assets, and this is all done in the administrative department. So administrative departments can spend money and they can save money. And the administrative division, we're trying to also save money. We're not just out there looking to spend. So that's what we're doing there. Finally, leveraging technology. We talked about some of the things with smart property, what we're doing there with our reserve study. It's just created a great opportunity for us. The irrigation projects, being able to dial in the sprinkler head. The water savings, I mean, it's tens of millions of gallons of water that we're saving from these irrigation projects that'll create a potential revenue opportunity down the road with maybe water leases on some of those water rights if we don't need them. Little early days for that, but that would potentially create an opportunity there. We've been doing the same thing for 40 plus years here. Our revenue streams haven't really changed much. That could be a game changer for us. So something to look forward to. And then finally, just looking at our cash, if we have, at any point in time, we could have up to 12, 13 million in our operating account, depending on the amount of cash need there is for capital expenditures every year. So we're kind of making that money work for us as well, and that's generating, 6 figures for us 100 to 200 to even 300,000 for us in our operating account, which is good. So we're always looking at that. So encourage you to take a look at those cost management measures. I'm not going to spend any more time on that, but please go through that. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, so so with the expense increases we talked about, the 4% overall, there's some revenue things we need to take a look at to cover those expense increases, because we want to return 1.2 million in our reserve fund allocation. That reserve fund allocation is the leftover operating excess that we want to help fund our reserve fund. It's an important part of our reserve fund. So there's 7.5% of our membership and associate member dues that go into that reserve fund, and that's creating a $1.2 million injection into our reserve fund from this budget. So we have to balance our budget. So to do that, we have to look at some of the revenue opportunities that are out there. So let's talk about that. First and foremost, dues. Dues are 55% of our overall operating budget. Very important. I like to think of it as guaranteed money. It's money that we're guaranteed to receive. There's a heartbeat in the house. There's a member due, and that's a beautiful thing for this association. And member dues fund our operating budget at 55%. Golf is another big player at 40%, golf revenue. But so we have to look at both of those areas when we have expense increases. And we have to take a look at those areas to make sure we're continuing to hit our budget goals, essentially. So looking at member dues, we can generate an additional $754,000 to cover those increased expenses by increasing our member dues $28 from $570 to $598. Again, this will allow us to return 7.5% of our dues at approximately 1.2 million into our reserve fund. Golf at 40% of the overall revenue is going to generate an additional $191,000. Now we've got 320,000 rounds of golf in the budget. If you were at the golf meeting yesterday, or if you want to subject yourself to how long, many hours? 3 hours? 3.5 hours? If you want to watch that, or 2.5, 3 hours? Yeah. If you want to watch it, it's great, some great dialogue. We had a great meeting, but we proposed these items here: a $3 increase in peak season for our members, a $1 increase for our non-members, and a $1 increase during peak season for our members, as well as a golf rate increase for the 2 cards that we don't collect a greens fee on, the unlimited card and the twilight card. And then we also proposed increasing the range balls from $3 to $4 a bucket, and a $3 trail fee for non-members renting cards who don't rent cards when they come here. And then finally, just a 25-cent increase in our snacks will generate 20,000. That's how many snacks we sell, which is kind of crazy. But so we kind of ran that up the flagpole. and what we ended up with, the consensus from the committee was that the increases are fine overall, but how we get there is a little different. So we're just gonna do it in golf rates rather than hitting these range ball areas and the trail fee. So what we decided to do was instead take our non-member rate and increase that by $6. And we're also going to add the transition season there for $3. So keeping the current $3, adding $3 on top of that, and then also adding $3 to transition season for our non-members, golfers that come here to golf, increasing those rates. And then keeping the $1 increase for our members, but adding the transition season in there, which is October and May, increasing those seasons by $1 as well. So a $1 increase for our members during peak and transition season, a $3 increase for our non-members during transition season, and a $6 increase during peak season for our non-members. And that'll get us to where we need to be, along with that 25 cents. That'll get us to the same number, the overall number that we needed, which is 400,000, approximately 400,000. Okay. we'll reflect those in the next presentation. Okay, so bowling is our other opportunity. We've got a world-class bowling facility. We've had some significant investment in lanes, in our lanes in the last couple of years, and as well as the proposed projects for our pin setters, and various things in our bowling alley in this year's budget at a little over $1 million. So we didn't put a bowling increase in 2024, and the bowling committee has accepted the proposal of a 25 cents per game or 25 cents per line increase in our bowling rates in the bowling alley. So, and then we're also hitting our non-members for a 50-cent increase. We're gonna increase the non-resident card to $40. It's a $10 increase, and then we're gonna hit our locker rentals for a little bit more and create member and non-member rates. But we wanted to have a bigger difference between our member and non-member locker rates that we have in there. And then finally, increasing the shoe rental from $2 to $1. Most of that is not going to be collected from our league bowlers, but kind of our outside bowlers, casual bowlers in the bowling alley. That'll generate $65,000. In this budget, we're proposing an APF, APF revenue at $5.9 million. We're looking at increasing the APF rate 200. That still puts us in line. I'll show you a slide of how we rate compared to other like communities near us in the surrounding area. And then we're also assuming 1,100 title transfers. We're pretty much on pace for that this year, and that's what we put in this year's budget, so we're going to keep that number. We feel good about it. Every dollar of that APF revenue, I'll remind everybody, goes right into the reserve fund to pay for capital improvement. So you've got your APF revenue, you've got your excess operating revenue. Those both go into the reserve fund. First, you pay for your capital improvement, and then whatever's left over goes in the reserve fund, or whatever the deficit is, it's pulled out of the reserve fund. That's how that works. So, and then we talked a little bit, highlighted this earlier. This year, we're going to have about $257,000 in interest income from our operating cash. Unfortunately, we're going to be using that operating cash to pay for irrigation project. So, because we don't fund it from the reserve fund until the project's finished. So the funds in the reserve fund will stay in there and make interest, but the funds in the operating account will go down, which will create less interest income. Ultimately, it's a wash, or hopefully we make out better in the reserve fund. But at the end of the day, it's going to be $157,000 in this budget. Okay, so capital impact, again, a $206,000 increase. Estimated reserve funds, $57,000 increase. Impact to our reserve fund. I know that Mr. Hurley doesn't like this slide because it's got depreciation on it. So I made a special slide for Mr. Hurley to give us what the cash impact really is to our reserve fund. See, I'm listening. Thank you. You're welcome. So this year we're projecting a reserve fund inflow of $7.9 million. That's made up of, there's going to be a $40,000 excess over the reserve fund allocation that we budgeted. So there's going to be essentially $191,000 coming from operations. There's going to be $5.7 million coming from APFs. And then we're estimating a reserve fund change of $981,000. The total of all that is $7.9 million. In this budget, we've got $5.9 million coming from APFs. We've got an estimated reserve fund allocation of $1.2 million. We're estimating we'll get at least the same investment return on our investments in our reserve fund, and that'll generate $8.1 million for a approximately $1,000 increase year over year inflow into our reserve fund. Now, keep in mind, the 7.9, with that 7.9, we're funding a capital budget of approximately $10.5 million this year. So there's going to be a deficit because we're going to have 10.5 going out, 7.9 coming in. We're going to have to pull from our reserve fund. In next year's budget, we've got 8.1 coming in, and we've got approximately 5.6 in the budget. So next year, we're going to push money into our reserve fund from operations. That's how that works. Okay? All right, so if we compare the rates that we're proposing to surrounding communities, I gotta say, first of all, we're a bargain. I can't tell you how many people come up and tell me that. Now, they don't get on Facebook and they don't open out an article to tell us that we're a bargain. They just come in and go, man, it's just such a great deal. I've had some people come up to me saying comments like, it's almost free, okay? Now, we're also sensitive to the people in the community that are on fixed incomes that moved here 30 years ago, okay? And so when we look at our increases, we try to keep them in line the best way that we can to accomplish our budget goals, to feed our reserve fund, and also provide a bargain to this community. And this budget does that. But if you compare, in our opinion, this budget does that. If you compare what we pay or what we're proposing to what other communities have, you can see we're well in line. Now, we are per member, Sun City's per rooftop, so these are all per rooftop. But I'll also say that you can't just double our number because we don't have 2 people on every rooftop. We got about 1.7 people per rooftop in our community. So if you want to compare it per rooftop, you'd take that 598 and multiply it times 1.7, and that would be more of a rooftop comparison compared to these communities. But if you're a single person, you pay 598 in Sun City West, you pay 650 in Sun City. So you're getting a really good bargain if you compare those 2 communities from the feedback that I've heard of both communities. And so if you look at the APF fee, we're proposing $5,400. You can see what some of the other communities are proposing. I will say Pebble Creek in their policy is that their APF fee is 1 year of their dues. So whatever their dues are, that's what their APF is going to be. And you can see what their dues are. It's significantly higher, 8 times. Sorry. 5 times what we are. But you can also look at Sun City Festival. They're brand new. They're not even built out yet. Well, neither is Pebble Creek, I believe. So they're not even built out yet. They're brand new. We're 46 years old. There's people that have been paying dues here for decades, and boy, I'm sure they're all for the APS because you should have to buy into this community. If you've been paying dues for 10 years and somebody comes in and goes, boy, this place is nice, they should have to buy into it, and they do. So the APF fee is a really good thing. And with the changes in the laws, I mean, now if you pass it on to a loved one for no consideration, you don't even have to pay an APF fee anymore. So these are literally brand new people moving into the community that haven't paid a nickel of dues here, that are going to be able to move into this community and take advantage of all these wonderful amenities. We feel they should have to pay a buy-in. And it's a good thing because it feeds the reserve fund. You can see what the impact of the reserve fund is, and every nickel we collect there, we don't have to collect in dues. Dues and golf fees used to be the only inflow into our reserve fund before we started charging an APF fee back in 2003, 2002, somewhere around that. So APF fees are good. They're good for the community, but we still have to stay on the market, and we feel that we are. So it's all about the reserve fund. I always say that, people kind of roll their eyes, but it's true. It is about the reserve fund, and the reserve fund is in good shape. It's in really good shape. You can see here with the modeling that we're going to do, we'll finish the year at 45% and projected by 2930. And this is a conservative projection, okay? There is, there are some things that could happen in the economy that can make this better or worse. But I will say this is a conservative projection, and we've got three irrigation projects in this projection that are going to happen between now and 2030. So, and those are big projects. Those are big cash draws, the things that we have to do. But once we get those past us, we're in really good shape, really good shape. And we're in really good shape now, though. We have the money, we have the funds available to do what we need to do for ADWR and also to keep the place looking nice. And that's what this modeling shows. And then I always like to put a slide in here to show what the impact of dues are. So at 4.9% increase, we can have an estimated reserve fund allocation of $1.2 million. If if we did a 6.1% increase, so if we went up $35, that you can see what the impact, the first year impact, and then every year moving forward impact would be on those dues. So it's a different impact just because of the way we bill our dues. So we only get a half a year out of a dues increase in the first year, and then every year after that we get a full year. But you could see what the impact of dues are and what happens with that. And so if we're planning and we're doing master planning down the road and we're looking at ways to generate funds, this is a good way to look at it. But this kind of shows you what each dues amount would do to our estimated reserve fund allocation, how we bolster that. And keep in mind too, that the FY27 beyond, that impact is until infinity. So if you do a dues increase, an additional dues increase or more of a dues increase, that stays in place until the end of time. It has a significant impact in the budget, but we're proposing 4.9% in this budget. Finally, we've got some kind of key dates that I want to keep everybody in the loop on. On March 20th, we're going to take some Q&A from the board. Obviously, we'll have that's next week. We'll also have a budget and finance meeting on the 1st of April. And then on April 17th, we're going to be getting the capital improvement budget. This board's going to be voting on what's going to be included in the financial plan. So that's an important date. And then April 24th and 25th, we're going to present the budget to the community at 2 different forums. So encourage everybody to come out for that. And then finally, well, not finally, on the 25th, I'm sorry, on the 17th, the governing board will make the recommendation on that, and then the vote will happen on the 25th, excuse me, for the capital items. And then finally, on May 22nd, we're going to have a big old party, and we're going to approve this budget. So please come for that as well. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Cliff. I was impressed with the amount of detail and the data that you gave us. So any questions from the board at this point? It's a lot to go over and review before next week. Yes, Director Novello?
Not so much a question. Again, I agree. There's a lot of detail here. As I mentioned to the residents earlier, there's a lot of analysis that still has to go in here. So please funnel those questions to whomever you need to. We're all open to hearing that. And there were, let's see here. There are a few things here. We talked about member questions. I'm going through some of the. That was really it. Just wanted to do a commercial, I guess, to funnel those questions. By the time April's community forums come around, you can see that we've already had several rounds of discussions. So please engage now and stay engaged throughout. Ask those questions. There are no secrets, and there'll be lots more questions, I'm sure, from the board. But.
Any other question, Director Pieckowski?
On slide 26, you guys, your merit raise went from 3% to 4%. Last year it was only 3%. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe we had a 3% bucket last year, yes.
Okay. And so that merit raise, is that only for full-time employees? Like our minimum part-time people don't get that?
Correct. They're tied to the Arizona minimum wage increase, and then so it's all other employees not minimum wage, non-minimum wage.
Okay, so I'm just asking, when you have like a starter at a golf course that's been there for 5 or 6 years, Kay's been there for 5 or 6 years, Jillian walks in, we both make the same amount of money.
Yes.
So we don't value that employee to be more valuable because she's been with us for longer. I'm just asking.
I don't know how to respond to that, but other than that position is tied to minimum wage, and we actually add $1 onto that position because they're handling cash. So we do a minimum plus 1. But yes, that position is not evaluated for a merit raise. It's tied strictly to the Arizona minimum.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the audience?
That's so
Bill Weaver, 124087. Concerning the reserve fund study, every asset is put in there with its projected life and its projected future cost. Do you also include the projected repair over the life of that asset?
No, that's in the operating budget.
The only reason I ask is it would seem like that would have a bearing on our fully funded balance and the money we have to keep in reserve in order to spend.
We have to delineate operating versus capital. So the replacement of that item that's 5 years, has a 5-year useful life and a value of at least 5,000, that's a capital improvement. And then the maintenance and upkeep on that item is an operating budget, and that gets approved separately. That's why I showed the two kind of, the circle
right.
with the two different budgets.
And then I wonder, when you have in the proposed items, you have a proposed cost. I'm wondering how well we're doing, or if you do a study on how well we're doing on projecting the life and the future costs of these items, so that our reserve fund is actually accurate based on
Yes.
data.
So we do, in the sense that when we have items like air conditioning units, carpet, we've got multiple numbers of those items. So whenever we replace one of those items, we make sure that the rest of the items that are on the reserve study fall in line with that. When we have items like, I can't even say irrigation projects anymore because we got a pretty good wag on what irrigation projects cost now. So, but when we have items that are long-term items that we only have very few of, those are a little bit more of a guesstimate. You kind of rely on the original cost and then the inflation applied to it. And then we'll also look at those items, and if there's a big item we need to just look and make sure we're on the market on that, we'll do that.
Okay.
But a lot of the items, we have over 1,400 items. A lot of those are multiple items that come up in multiple years. So we have the ability of costing those out and making sure that whatever we have coming up down the line, the current cost is correct.
Thank
you.
you.
You're welcome.
Tom Jones, 110390. I'm the current president of Pride. And I noticed on your one slide, you missed one line that said Friends of the Library and Prides. Would you be able to go back and
Absolutely.
give us that portion, please?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. So the Friends of the Library and Prides are two volunteer organizations that we partner with in the community. And one of the savings that we have and efficiencies that we have is the ability to partner with these organizations, because they help take care of our community and its resources that don't come out of our dues and come out of our golf rates and such. So Prides does a tremendous job partnering with Maricopa County and us to make sure that some of our common areas are well maintained and the place looks wonderful. And it's a volunteer organization, and it's just a partnership that we treasure. Friends of the Library is another one. They have a $150,000 budget, operating budget, in books and supplies and all the things that they take care of in that library that we don't have to fund. We do have a staff for the library, but they also provide us 22,000 hours of volunteer work at that library, which if we paid for that would be over 300,000. So there's a tremendous benefit and savings with these partnerships that we have with Prides and Friends of the Library. And that's just another one of those areas that we're also, as part of our strategic initiatives, looking at trying to take advantage of some of those efficiencies that we can create within the community. But those are two that we currently have that are just a tremendous benefit to the members of this association and to the operating budget.
Could I speak about Prides? Okay, for those who don't know what Prides is all about, it's an acronym: Proud Residents Involved Doing Environmental Services Our mission to ensure Sun City West is a beautiful, well-groomed, highly desirable community in which to live. We're a 501c3 charity, and we work very closely with Todd and the landscaping department, and they work with us. We also work with Maricopa County, and we are all volunteer. And so if any of you, the younger listeners, viewers, are willing and capable of donating time on Saturdays, and then our irrigation is on Tuesdays, where we would welcome additional members, additional volunteers. Some of the membership that have been with Pride since the early start of it in the 80s are at an age where they can't continue, and so they've had to retire. So we have, as the community changes and the younger people come in, they're more able to help us. But we would like to have volunteers added to our organization. And Rudy, do you need volunteers for your section? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, so with the help of my colleagues up here on the dais, I found the online questions. So the problem was the nut behind the keyboard was loose. So we're going to go back for a few topics here. You know what? Let me hit Cliff while he's up here, then I'll go back to the other ones. This is from Mary Gannett 133113. Do your salary projections include salaries for open positions? If so, doesn't that inflate your variance numbers when those go unfilled? And are merit raises only given to salaried people? I'm not suggesting most hourly people expect merit raises, as I don't know of any, but more to point out when you say merit, those are pretty much geared for salaried positions.
Okay, so
There were 3 questions there at least.
Yeah, so the first question, when it comes to open positions, there are current open positions. I think we have 19 currently. Is that, or 15, excuse me, 15 open positions currently. That's a wide range of part-time and full-time positions that are open. But when we put the budget together, we do budget for positions that do become open throughout the year. But that's the prudent thing to do, of course. We can get by with getting stuff done, but the need is what's in the budget. And ultimately, you get to a point where services suffer if you don't have what you need. You can supplement outside services, and there's an offset there in labor in the operating budget when that happens. But we do budget all the positions. When it comes to merit raises are for non-minimum wage employees. So part-time or full-time, if you're non-minimum wage related, you're on the merit raise ticket.
Okay, thank you. There's another question from Mary Gannett, which is a request made of me personally. I will not read that one out loud. She asked me to address something. A question from Dave DeWitt, rec card number 141268. I'm curious if we know how much more of a dues increase would be needed to avoid all the, quote, nickel and dime increases in bowling, snacks, etc.
I can answer that because we have that slide that says how much more you generate with every $5. So I guess what I would say is the overall budget has a revenue increase of 1.174, 809 of that comes from membership, so to speak. So we need another 300 and $70,000 approximately in revenue. So, well, actually not 370. It's actually 190 plus.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're on a
500.
roll, but the question was about bowling specifically, which was a $65,000 revenue increase.
You said bowling? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's in bowling and snacks.
You're sorry. I know you're on a roll.
Sorry if I, yeah, I mean, I don't like $1 for every 28,000 members. So, and then you get half of the benefit of that. So it's 14,000. So 64,000 divided by 14,000 for $4. Back of the napkin.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions for Cliff? That's all I have online for Cliff. Okay. Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then I'll go back to the other questions.
Well done.
These are the questions that I missed earlier from Gary Bach, 135435. Director Novello, this is for you. Can you tell us, based on the laws, how long recording will be saved without us going out to read the laws?
Certainly. At present, the laws are silent on the duration, leaving it up to the organization, as I've been advised. There's legislation pending before Arizona now that would put a specific duration on that. I believe at this point it's still pending. So again, we're putting this into the capable hands of our general manager and his team to track the specific duration. That would, the pending legislation would limit, not extend that. So there's no discussion of a forever, but rather a minimum amount at this time. I hope that helps.
Thank you. And there's another comment from Tracy Anderson, 132045. Thank you, Carl. It has been a pleasure. Good luck in retirement. Hopefully we will see you at lawn bowling. And I think that brings us up to speed on all the online comments. Okay, with that, we'll go to agenda item number 311, the discussion of the strategic plan. Our general manager, Stephen Erno.
Thank you, President Larry. So I am so excited right now to be having this finally make it to this point. I know there's been a lot of discussion about strategic planning and master planning. So what I wanted to do was really start out with the difference between a strategic plan and a master plan. So those two are very different in the way that they are handled. If you can go to the next slide, because I don't have a clicker. Thank you. So just to clarify, so the strategic plan, the idea behind the strategic plan is really the short-term projects and initiatives, and that's really the 1 to 3 year projects and initiatives that we're looking at. That's created with the input from the governing board and staff, because it really is dealing more with those things that are almost to the point of operational, in the sense that it's the direction that the governing board is giving to the general manager to say, go forth and do these things. It's going to really enhance that decision-making and transparency. So the whole idea behind the strategic plan also is that we're all on the same page. So, the general manager knows from the governing board what they want to have accomplished. The community knows what's being worked on. We have timetables laid out as far as when the things are going to be accomplished. So it provides really that clear roadmap for deliverables. And then it's updated annually with that current governing board. So each year, I will work with the governing board to basically provide an update and say, okay, here are the things that were on the strategic plan already. Here are here's the progress of those items. Either we have accomplished them, or we're at this stage of the process, or we're looking at, hey, we've done this part so far, but now we realize we need to push that out for another year, whatever that might be. And then also soliciting additional projects or initiatives from not only staff, but also the governing board as to things to add for the next 1 to 3 years. The difference being, though, is the master plan. So a master plan is a totally separate document, a totally separate process, and that's really those long-term projects and initiatives, sometime 5 to 20 years or so. That is the document that's created with that extensive member input. So we're talking about many meetings with the community, surveys, different focus groups, things like that, to really decide where is the community going and what do we need to do in order to plan for the next phase of retirees coming in. We if you've all gone through Torches, I'm sure you all have. One of the sections talks about the different generations that are there, and Gen Xers are coming up, and I literally had this discussion yesterday at Torch with one of the community members. The fact that yes, so for example, somebody like myself, 56 years old, 10 years-ish retirement plan. Well, 10 years goes by really fast when you're talking about an organization and planning. We just went through the whole budgeting process and looking at those, the reserve studies and all that. So we need to be planning now for what's going to happen 10 years from now. So some folks might look at it and say, well, that's too far out, we don't need to worry about it. Well, yeah, we do, because we need to be prepared for and ready for the next generation and know what they want to do. So part of that master plan is figuring out not only what are the people that are here, what they want, and what they would like to see as far as amenities, maybe additional space, or what that looks like for those folks that are here for sure, but also finding a consultant that can find out for us as to what is that next generation looking for when they come in, because that's a big piece as well. So it's a bit mixed of both. We want to make sure that we are certainly taking care of our current members. But I say current members, it can be ones, maybe they just moved here. Maybe that's the Carls of the world that just moved here and is retiring. What does Carl want? That's what this is all about, right? What does Carl want? It's all about Carl. But again, that's going to be created with that extensive input from the members, and then certainly would be presented to the governing board and then eventually adopted as well. And then what comes out of that would drive also the future strategic plans as well. So if there is, from that master plan, there's some initiative that says, hey, we need to, I don't know, build a 20-story building. We wouldn't do that, but let's say it did. That'd be something that would be driving the strategic plan as to when that would happen and when we should be planning for that. And that's going to be initiated this coming fiscal year, or this next fiscal year. And I have the asterisk in there, pending, of course, the budget approval by the governing board. It is budgeted in that in this coming budget year. So what we did is last week we had a session with both staff, with the consultants, and several hours with the consultant and staff, and narrowing down. After taking input from both staff and the governing board through a survey, the consultants basically took that information, compiled it into what they thought we all were saying, and then presented that, and then worked with staff last week on one day, and worked with the governing board the next day to really refine that, wordsmith it, and then from that, the governing board at that point had consensus on this is what we would like to see. And I'm not going to read these, but I'm just saying this is the components of that strategic plan are that mission and vision statements that were created from that to update the ones that we had before, which I'm not sure when it was that they were last done, but I believe they were quite dated from my understanding at least. And then also from that, we created these organizational values. So we had values before, and I don't know how many we had. I feel like there was 100 of them. There was quite a few. There was a lot. The goal of this was really to make it more concise and figure out what are we as an organization really about when it comes to how we deliver services and how we approach things. And this is important because this is what the goal of this is, to really ingrain this in the organization. So to have it more concise, something that people can actually remember, something we can use to we push out through the employees and use in our everyday conversations of how we do things. When we're looking at doing something as an organization, are we applying these values to it? The whole idea behind the strategic plan and eventually even the master plan is this is not a plan to sit on the shelf. This is a plan that is going to be incorporated and engaged, an engaging document that we will use on a regular basis, that my hope is that the governing board embraces and uses on a regular basis, as well as the staff, and it becomes really part of our culture and how we do things. In addition to that, from that is the strategic focus areas were created, again, from that feedback from both staff and the governing board, and was refined. And these are the strategic focus areas that were decided upon. And then I didn't list them all, but under each one of those strategic focus areas are the guiding principles that are related to those as well. So the whole idea, again, is as the staff and the governing board are looking at things, they should be measured against these focus areas, those core values, that mission and vision, and those guiding principles under that. And really the conversation should always be, where does it fit within our strategic plan? How does it fit into, when we're talking about doing something, how does it fit into those areas? So in addition, it also has the very specific steps every year that it will do, that we'll focus on. So again, as I mentioned, it'll be updated annually with the governing board. And again, we're not going to use a consultant every year. The consultants jokingly talked about, and I know your governing board, you all heard them as well, that they have a really bad business model. They create a document that can be used without bringing them back. And having used them and this model before, I can tell you that it's absolutely true. What's great is, so we have this model now. Each year, like I mentioned, we will update this and work with the governing board. So unless at some point down the road, some governing board says, we just don't like all of the focus areas, or we don't like the core components of the strategic plan, there is no reason to go back and have a consultant review this again. This can be done through working with the governing board and staff to refine it each year and to make sure that it's staying relevant. And then the idea behind it is that the governing board and the general manager, that we are committing that the staff have the time and resources. So part of the process when preparing this with the consultants were that we prepared these different projects and initiatives, and then put actual timelines on them in terms of fiscal years, as to which fiscal year it will be completed. So if you see fiscal year 26, right? No, 25, 26. 26. Yeah, I know. You think by now, my entire years of government service, I would know that, but fiscal year 26, that means by June of 26, that project or initiative would be completed, and you'll see that in the document as well. And then the idea behind it as well, so again, is that guiding light, that guiding document that we look towards. So if at some point, if there was some desire to add some new project or initiative, there needs to be a conversation about where that works into the plan, and reprioritizing the plan, because that means if we're going to do this, something needs to move, so that we can't just pile things on and expect that staff can accomplish all of them, because there is only a certain amount of capacity that staff has, time and resources, in order to accomplish things, which is why it lays out very specific details. So once it's approved by the governing board, it's going to be, right now, the content that we have is just that, it's the content. And then we will convert it to a more visually appealing document. And then we're going to push that out to the members through our Rec Center News, social media, all of our outlets, and then also have it posted conspicuously on the website. So the whole idea is that everybody knows what we're doing and everybody knows what direction we're headed. So, and I included an example of that, which was, we'll come back to questions, the City of Buckeye one. Do you have that one up? Sorry, I should have prepped you for that. It's on there. Nope, down one more, scroll down. There you go. And this, I'm just bringing this up as an example of what the document, once Katie, that works for Magic on it, she will turn it into a much more visually appealing document. So this was City of Buckeyes. If you can just kind of scroll through it a little bit there, Terry, that'd be great. It basically takes all of the components that you'll see, the content, and puts it into a much more visually appealing, and it'll flow better. So each one of those focus areas then talks about what activities we're going to accomplish within those areas. So again, this layout that you see here with Buckeyes is exactly the same type of layout that we're working with as well. But I just wanted to show this as an example of kind of what ours will eventually look like. It'll be much more appealing so that folks might actually hopefully take the time to take a look at it and follow along with us as we go through these years. The great thing about this, like I said, what's exciting to me is that this provides the general manager, myself, with some clear direction from the governing board on and consensus on what we're looking to accomplish and what the things are that we're going to be working towards, and then provides accountability. So this then becomes the document throughout the entire organization. So each department is listed as to who the lead department person is. If you can go back to the questions. And as we work through this, each department will be held accountable. So whatever department's assigned to it, they will know that, hey, they have to report back, and we will be providing report backs through the governing board and to the community as to the progress of each one of these. And so it really, again, becomes ingrained in our culture and our organization as to how we move forward. So with that, I just wanted to give some context to the entire document. I wasn't going to go through the entire document. It is also attached in board docs as well. You all, again, were certainly a part of creating that, so you're familiar with it. The community, though, would have it if they'd like to review it on there as well. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, any questions from the audience?
Bill Weaver, 124087. Within your plan, are you also going to include what needs to be retired? Since our population is not growing, the size of the community is really not growing, it's changing. As we want new activities or new things, others should be retired and gotten rid of, otherwise we just continue to increase APFs and dues. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Yeah, so that actually would be part of the master planning, because again, that's looking at what's the future holding, and then to your point, what are the things that are just not there anymore? And so yes, that would include those things that we should be phasing out because it's just not part of what the community is wanting anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
Nick Turner, 131829. It's not a question, it's more of a comment, and that is, keep priorities constant as long as we can. I know they're going to change over time, but we can't be changing priorities every 6 months. I have this picture in my mind of a future governing board that might be saying, your priority is A, and then next week your priority is B, and then in the third week later is, why aren't you working on C? We just need some consistency so people have the time and the correct prioritization, and they know what they should be working on.
Yeah, so great point, and that's exactly what this is intended to do, is the governing board, you're right, I agree that the governing board can come in, but that's, again, the idea is that each governing board will be, I'll review this with them annually. To your point, the reality is that first annual review is going to be September of 26, because we have just created this. September of this year, to change those priorities, it wouldn't make sense. It's just a matter of timing. And then every year going forward, September, when the new board becomes active, is the time that I would sit down with that new board and say, okay, here's all the things we've accomplished. What are you looking to accomplish so that we can update the strategic plan and reprioritize? But to do that, this being March, to do that in September this year, obviously would not work. So simply a matter of timing for this year, not that I want to exclude the incoming board by any means. That's not the intention. It's just a simple matter of when, frankly, I was hired and when this process was started, and then when it's being completed, and then the timing going forward. But I would hope that the governing board, anybody governing board coming in, can appreciate the things that are on here. I think most of the things that are on here have come from staff. Well, not most. All of the things that are on here have come from staff and the current governing board, which really is a reflection of our community. I mean, these are things that we've all heard about. So I don't know that there's going to be anything that, oh my gosh, this is horrible, you really need to work on this right now versus these things. I would hope not. I would hope that the respect for the process of where we're at right now with this, and then how it's going to be, how it will be moving forward for forever, frankly. I mean, it'll be something that becomes just the way we do things. that will be respected by the incoming governing board.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the audience? And I see no online comments. So, Dr. Thank you for, no, that's great. That's
If I may,
operator error.
I apologize. Earlier, it was not so much a question, just more of a comment. And I'm excited, obviously. This is something that, as General Manager had said, has been in the discussion for a long time. So it's exciting. And a number of our residents are as well. I received some communication in particular from 2 residents that had seen some of this material and wanted to comment on or make changes to things like the vision and so forth. I just wanted to thank them and all of you for paying attention and realize and underscore what Stephen had said, that this is a living document. This is a great place to get started. So I just wanted to ensure that those who contributed or asked me to consider some of those changes, to understand that the board participated and will continue to participate in that. So it wasn't anything that was a dramatic change, but just know it's a living document. We are hearing your input, and the master plan process is going to be a great time to engage. So thanks for that, and please continue to engage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we will go to agenda item 312, which is scheduled for the PORA presentation. They will not be here. We will not do this presentation. They contacted me late Wednesday afternoon after the agenda was posted and indicated that they would not be able to present at this session. So we will not see that today, and hopefully we'll do that at another time. So with that, I'm going to go to the comment section. I'm going to actually flip 401 and 402, and I'll start with the general manager comments.
Thank you, President Larry. I actually have no other comments other than just to thank again the board and the staff for their hard work on putting together the strategic plan. It was a great process, and thank you for your involvement in that.
Then I will go to director comments. I'll start with Director Horvath. Do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you. The strategic plan was something I was very interested in last year when I was campaigning. I couldn't be more pleased as to results that came out of the study group, the group we hired, the consultants, and the board. It was actually a fun day. So I'm glad to see this go forward.
Okay, thank you. Director Grom?
No, sir, nothing to add.
Okay, Director Novello?
Another commercial for the Budget and Finance Committee. It's so important to all of us. So thanks again for paying attention. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, the 18th at 9 a.m. And there'll be another meeting, without joking, there will be another meeting on April 1st at 9 a.m. in this building, in this room rather. Please come and comment and remain engaged in the process. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Piaskowski? No comments. Director Williams? No comments. Director Rhodes?
I would like to make a comment, and it's on the presentation that our CFO did. He was able to take a very complex issue that had multiple moving parts and reduce it to a summary that that we all could see and could understand. He was superbly prepared, and I think it was just an incredibly professional job, and I appreciate the work that he's done, and I especially appreciate the way he delivered it so we can understand it and formulate our own questions on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Hurley?
No comments other than to echo what Dick just said.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to open the floor to comments from the audience.
Excuse me, Dave Bennett, 1378887. I just want to thank Stephen for getting his short time he's been here, getting this strategic plan accomplished and I was able to sit in on it, and it was a wonderful experience, and you've done such a wonderful job. I couldn't just sit there and not thank you and all of you that worked on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other comments online. Get a verification on that? Okay. Okay. I do have one comment. It saddens me to have to make this comment, and it is with regret that I must acknowledge and report that a governing board director has breached election interference rules. Director Piaskowski violated board election principles and protocol by putting into a private text message criticism of 2 board candidates that went viral. While the text message was privately prepared and sent, which is her right, the message nevertheless became public and as such constituted a violation against the governing board principles and protocol that it, quote, stands apart, unquote, from all election activities. I believe that Director Piaskowski has prepared a statement that she would like to read.
Thank you, President Leary. I got a slight cold here. So, to the Sun City West Governing Board and residents, I regret the comments I made regarding the 2 candidates running for office in the current election. I recognize that my comments, while made in private, became public and were inappropriate. My comments are my own and do not represent any member of the governing board. I sincerely apologize to the Sun City West Governing Board and residents, and especially the 2 candidates who were mentioned. I ask for your forgiveness and urge all candidates and their supporters to conduct a clean, fair campaign and election. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Piaskowski. It is regrettable that this incident happened. Director Piaskowski will be suspended for 10 days beginning March 15th, 2025 through March 24th, 2025, 10 days. I urge everyone to keep an open mind and not let unfortunate events like this one affect their voting decisions. I echo Director Piaskowski's statement, urging all candidates and their supporters to run clean, fair campaigns. Thank you for that. Our next workshop meeting is April 11th, 2025 in this room, 9 a.m. And our next governing board regular meeting is March 20th, 2025, 9 a.m. in the lecture hall. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting.